This man wanted to live a rich life, so he had sold his soul to the messenger of hell. He would have 10 years of happiness, but when the contract ended, he would have to pay with his own soul. Time quickly passed to 2025. The man's time limit had expired. Gu-won received orders from hell to collect the soul of the person who had made the contract. He called out the old contract. The man understood the situation, but still wanted to escape. Unfortunately, an ordinary person could not defeat the power of a god. Gu-won easily completed the first mission, but when he left, he was accidentally seen by the man's subordinates. At the same time, the richest young lady in Korea was forced by her mother to go on a blind date. The girl originally intended to just finish the matter. Unexpectedly, the moment the blind date revealed his eyes, the rich young lady was stunned. She didn't believe that there was such a handsome man. But at this time, Gu-won still didn't know who this girl was. He completely ignored the woman in front of him, because humans are nothing in front of the demons. The rich young lady was stunned when she heard that. She thought to herself, how could such a handsome man be crazy? But the girl didn't know that the young man sitting in front of her was not an ordinary person. Just as Do-hee stood up to leave, a call came from her foster mother. She ordered her to go on a proper blind date and not leave halfway. Do-hee was helpless, so she set a timer for 30 minutes and reluctantly sat down. At this time, Gu-won began to feel curious. There were clearly many seats in the restaurant, but the girl in front of him insisted on sitting here to eat. In fact, Do-hee's blind date partner was sitting in another restaurant. She went to the wrong place. Suddenly and unexpectedly, a gang of thugs showed up. At the same time, Do-hee's phone also notified that the 30 minutes were up. Do-hee didn't hesitate and stood up to leave, but suddenly, a cake flew towards her. Gu-won quickly pulled Do-hee out and caught the cake. This romantic scene immediately made the noble lady like Do-hee move. Do-hee suddenly felt that this man was kind and cute. Gu-won looked at Do-hee and said, "Luckily it's okay." This sentence made Do-hee a little nervous. She immediately ran into the bathroom to escape that awkward atmosphere. Who would have thought that Gu-won's "luckily it's okay" was referring to the birthday cake? At this moment, Do-hee in the restroom was extremely confused. It turned out that today was her birthday. She didn't expect that the seemingly terrible man had specially prepared a birthday cake for her. But when she thought about it, Do-hee found that he didn't show any feelings. Remembering the scene just now, she couldn't control her emotions and her cheeks started to turn red. So she tried to use foundation to hide her thoughts. However, she unconsciously applied lipstick. It seemed that she was really looking forward to seeing Gu-won again. Meanwhile, the demon Gu-won was about to eat a piece of cake when the thug ruined it. In order to eat this cake, he had to order it a month ago. So Gu-won told the thug to wait until after the meal to talk, but the guy was disrespectful and smashed the cake instead. Gu-won got mad and grabbed the newspaper next to him to prepare to deal with the troublemakers. He whipped it, and before the thug could understand what was happening, he was sucked into the newspaper. The remaining thugs were extremely panicked. Gu-won calmly rolled the newspaper into a stick. The mark on the demon's wrist began to glow. Anyone who was touched by the newspaper was immediately swallowed up. Finally, with a snap of his fingers, Gu-won imprisoned all the thugs. When Do-hee returned, the cake on the table was gone. She still had a little hope but was coldly rejected by Gu-won. He told her to leave the restaurant immediately. The short meeting ended in a misunderstanding between the two sides. Do-hee was on her way back when the secretary reported to her that the family was having an internal dispute and the initiator had been No Soo-jin. Mirai Group was one of the 10 largest corporations in Korea. The legendary chairman who had built this empire was named Ju Chon-suk. The eldest son, No Sok-min, was the one who lived under his mother's halo. The eldest daughter-in-law, Kim Sara, always craved attention. The eldest grandson, No Do-gyul, had volunteered to become invisible in order to survive. The second daughter, No Soo-jin, was fascinated by life abroad. The family also included a pair of twins and a grandson named Ju So-kun. Aside from the chairman, Ju So-kun was the only member of the family who bore the surname Ju. However, their relationship was more like that of business partners. It could be seen that Ju Chon-suk did not like this group of people very much. On the contrary, she was very fond of her adopted daughter, Do-hee. Of course, Do-hee was aware that she was not related by blood to the others. Therefore, behind those smiles lay a silent hostility. Who would inherit the group in the future depended on the outcome of this family struggle. Do-hee thought about this and sighed. Suddenly, unknown number called. The caller claimed to be the head of the Mirai Group's finance team. His name was Cha Tae-jun. He had an important document in his hand that was enough for Do-hee to use to win the position of chairman of the group, but it was inconvenient for him to say it over the phone. Therefore, Cha Tae-jun hoped that Do-hee would consider it carefully and contact him again. However, as soon as she hung up the phone, Ju Chon-suk sent a text message. The content of the text message was that the foster mother would leave first and they would meet again in heaven. Then Do-hee rushed into the hospital room. Seeing Ju Chon-suk lying there motionless, she immediately cried in pain. The foster mother calmly asked her daughter what she was doing. She had only taken a nap. Why was she acting so sad? It turned out that this was a surprise that the foster mother had prepared for Do-hee. She really wanted to know her daughter's reaction after knowing of her death. Do-hee was a bit unhappy when she mentioned that Ju Chon-suk used money to force her boyfriend to break up with her. But in fact, Ju Chon-suk had tricked him into taking the shopping coupon. The foster mother changed the subject to avoid Do-hee's questioning. She asked how the blind date went. Furthermore, she took out the picture of the blind date to discuss. Suddenly, the secretary came in to report that the matchmaker had sent the wrong restaurant address. Only then did Do-hee realize that she had gone on a blind date with the wrong person. So she immediately called Gu-won to apologize for what had just happened. But before she could finish her sentence, he hung up. Although Ju Chon-suk was very angry, the most important thing right now was to quickly arrange another blind date. After all, Do-hee was already 30 years old. Her wish was to see her beloved daughter get married before she passed away. Ju Chon-suk took out the wedding ring she had prepared. Then she told Do-hee that as long as one was human, one would always do bad things. But if someone was willing to sacrifice for you, then it was fate. It turned out that the anniversary of Do-hee's parents' death was the same as her birthday. Ju Chon-suk lit birthday candles, hoping that the tragedy would end that day. Then, she quickly contacted the blind date. Meanwhile, Gu-won felt uncomfortable because he could not eat dessert. This made him unable to concentrate. However, everyone thought that he was missing his blind date that day. Cha Tae-jun did not receive Do-hee's call for a long time. When he was about to leave, a person with a scratch on his neck appeared. That person drowned him in the restroom. Do-hee could not find out No Soo-jin's whereabouts, so she went to the beach alone. She suddenly remembered the happy moments with her parents many years earlier. The sad feelings resurfaced. She spent her birthday as if it had been cursed. On the way back, Do-hee discovered that the driving system showed the driver had 17 minutes to arrive. She immediately realized that the man driving the car was not the real driver. His neck was covered with horrible scratches. In fact, the real driver had been murdered. Do-hee wasn't afraid and asked him directly who had sent him. He didn't answer her question outright, but instead said that she was asking the wrong question. What she should be asking was why he had come. The assassin did not act any further. He took out sleeping pills to gag Do-hee while reminding her that Ju Chon-suk was the reason. Not long after, Do-hee lost consciousness. Just as the assassin was about to strike, Do-hee jumped up and leapt out of the car. Gu-won went over and found a soul trembling in despair. About Do-hee, she discovered a figure not far in front of her. She immediately ran to seek help. However, when she took a closer look, she realized it was Gu-won. Do-hee momentarily forgot to call for help and began to panic. She wondered why Gu-won appeared here. Was he an accomplice of the assassin? For a moment, Do-hee could not tell who the enemy was. Then she decided to follow her intuition and recklessly run towards Gu-won. However, Gu-won asked her to sign a contract before helping. In the moment of facing imminent danger, Do-hee did not think much and agreed. But while Gu-won and the assassin were fighting, Do-hee ran into the car. Just as she was about to start car, Gu-won approached her step by step. Do-hee hid by the bridge but was quickly discovered by him. As the demon grabbed her hand, it seemed that there was some kind of reaction. At this moment, the surviving assassin suddenly started the car and rushed towards the two. Gu-won calmly snapped his fingers, but nothing happened. His magic had long since disappeared. The car quickly sped forward. Gu-won and Do-hee had no choice but to fall into the water together. Do-hee woke up first. She could have easily escaped on her own, but she couldn't bring herself to leave behind the person who had saved her life. She intended to pull Gu-won up with her. However, the moment their hands touched, the demonic symbol appeared on her hand. In the end, due to lack of physical strength, both of them fainted in the bay water. They then woke up on a beach. Gu-won could not believe her eyes when he saw the mark on Do-hee's wrist. She fainted the moment the ritual was completed. When she woke up again, she was in the hospital. The only thing was that there was another thoughtful blind date candidate by her side. Gu-won was very worried about Do-hee right in front of Secretary Shin. He kept asking if there was anything she felt uncomfortable with. Secretary Shin felt a little embarrassed, so she quietly went out. However, as soon as Secretary Shin went out, Gu-won stopped pretending. Gu-won asked her if she was really okay. Do-hee replied that he looked also quite fine, but Gu-won said that it was a pity that he was not okay at all, so he waited for her until now. Gu-won pointed to the mark on his wrist. Do-hee was shocked when she saw a common tattoo on her hand. The demon Gu-won felt that his mark was offended. Do-hee kept trying to erase it. She even spit on it to erase it. Suddenly, she remembered the assassin from last night and the events in the unknown place, but Do-hee would rather suspect that it was just a drunken hallucination than believe that it was true. She then declared to the demon that she would go get laser treatment to remove the mark. Gu-won quickly stopped her from removing it. The two argued and struggled. In the end, Gu-won, with a handprint on his face, appeared very angry. The demon regretted saving Do-hee last night. However, Do-hee thought that she was kind enough enough to pull Gu-won ashore, but when she was not paying attention, he tattooed a tattoo on her wrist. At this moment, Secretary Shin walked in with the attending physician. The quarrel between the couple was considered to be on hold. Coincidentally, there was a contract about to expire. Gu-won quickly told Do-hee to stay away from lasers and a type of tattoo removal project called Dororo. After saying that, he immediately returned to his office. Gu-won discovered that the butler was secretly reading the demon's instruction manual. It turned out that demons existed because of contracts. If the demons did not sign a new contract, or if they violated the contract for even a second, or the contract expired, the demons would immediately turn into ashes. The butler was worried that Gu-won might be in danger. He immediately wanted to know how often the contract had to be signed. Actually, Gu-won didn't know either, so he was often worried. Suddenly, the butler discovered that the mark on his wrist had disappeared. In addition, Gu-won's personality seemed different today, so the butler wanted to confirm it a bit. The butler took a water bottle and threw it at Gu-won. As usual, Gu-won snapped his fingers. However, nothing happened except for the water splashing all over his face. Sure enough, the magic had completely disappeared. However, Gu-won stubbornly said that he had only temporarily lent his magic to someone else. In short, he had to deal with another urgent matter first. He needed to revoke the contract that expired today. The butler believed that without magic, demons could do nothing, but for Gu-won, who had existed for 200 years, retrieving the soul was extremely easy. So Gu-won was thrown several meters away by the contractor, but because of his pride as a demon, he still stood up and said to the other party the familiar sentence, "Stop fighting, leave and save some face." Unexpectedly, the other party didn't bother to say much and rushed forward. Gu-won lost his magic and was beaten miserably. He had no choice but to use his last resort, which was to run away. However, he did not forget to leave a threat that he would definitely teach the contractor a lesson. Although he said that, Gu-won actually felt very uncomfortable in his heart. Meanwhile, Do-hee was extremely busy. She saw Gu-won firstly had gone on a blind date with her, then he had suddenly appeared to save her, then he had wanted to sign some kind of contract. She thought that the contract must be disadvantageous to the company. Furthermore, due to internal disputes, the group's stock price dropped by 10% and caused a loss of 26 trillion won. Suddenly, she remembered the assassin's words and decided to go find Ju Chun-soo first. Do-hee and Ju Chun-soo went to the flower garden. She asked if there was anything her foster mother was hiding from her. Hearing these words, Ju Chun-soo was a little surprised at first. Then she turned around and said there was nothing and asked if Do-hee had heard any information. Do-hee replied that she was just curious. At this time, Ju So-kun went to report work to the chairman, which happened to be the time Do-hee was about to leave, so the two of them left together. It could be seen that Ju So-kun liked Do-hee. In order to sit in the same car, he even hid the car key. He said that he volunteered to be her driver. Unexpectedly, the person sitting in the passenger seat was the difficult Secretary Shin. Do-hee liked to sit in the back passenger seat. It was true that Ju So-kun was the driver. Do-hee and Secretary Shin started talking about the blind date. Ju So-kun suddenly stepped on the brakes. After hearing this, Do-hee was fine, but Secretary Shin got hit and had a nosebleed. On the other side, Gu-won couldn't find any information about the transfer of the mark or the method to get it back. He felt very depressed. According to the information from the magic eye, Do-hee didn't come from a wealthy family. Her father was just an engineer developing home appliances for the Mirai Group. Her mother was a hairdresser at a hair salon. The two of them had gotten married late and had a hard time giving birth to their only daughter, Do-hee. But Do-hee's father and mother had both passed away in a traffic accident on Do-hee's 11th birthday. She had been then adopted by Mirai Group's chairman, Ju Chun-soo. Notably, Do-hee's father and Ju Chun-soo had co-founded Mirai Group's electronics company. Do-hee was very hard-working in life. Not only had she achieved excellent academic results, she had also founded a bakery company while still in college. Within 7 years, Do-hee's company rose to become #1 in the F&B industry. She was single at that time. She had dated a few people in the past, but because she had been busy with her studies and work, her relationships had not lasted. Do-hee's favorite dish was sweet and sour pork. Combining all the information he had investigated, Gu-won decided to do what he was best at. What he was best at was charming people. On the other side, No Soo-jin was rejoicing at having thrown Do-hee's subsidiary into chaos. Unexpectedly, Do-hee suddenly appeared behind her. Do-hee reminded her sister that her eye for clothes was much better than her eye for men. In fact, Do-hee had come this time mainly to recover the stock price. She did not hesitate to show some intimate photos of No Soo-jin and the salesperson. It was at this moment that Gu-won called. He said that he had suffered from serious complications that were life-threatening, so he wanted to meet Do-hee as soon as possible. The two decided to meet downstairs at the shopping mall. After hanging up the phone, Do-hee threatened No Soo-jin that if her private life was revealed, the Mirai fashion brand would collapse, and the chairman would definitely be extremely angry. Do-hee suggested and warned her older sister that if she wanted to fight, she should have fun playing with the oldest brother. Meanwhile, Ju Chun-suk prayed sincerely to the priest. She was worried that she wouldn't be able to receive Do-hee's forgiveness. It turned out that when Do-hee's parents passed away, Ju Chun-suk was present at the scene of the accident. Her leg injury was also caused by that incident, but the truth was still unknown. That night, Do-hee was the first to arrive at the meeting place. She turned her head and saw Gu-won. In that moment, she heard her heart pounding. As the man approached, her heart beat faster and faster. There was no room for anything else in her eyes except Gu-won. After calming down, Do-hee took out a stack of cash to compensate for the meal last time. Gu-won confidently said that he didn't need it, but when he opened the envelope, he had second thoughts because there were hundreds of millions in it. However, before he could do anything, Do-hee snatched the envelope back. She was curious as to why he called her here. Gu-won said that he was very tired. Only Do-hee could solve his problem. After saying that, he immediately grabbed her hand. On the way, he asked her to reach out and then squeezed Do-hee's right hand. Very quickly, Gu-won drove to meet the contractor. He used his hand as a gun. The demon's mark received a response. At the same time he made a shooting motion, the contractor immediately fell down. The contract turned into dust. Not long after, the two arrived at the riverbank. Gu-won suddenly asked Do-hee to hold her breath. Before Do-hee could react, he held her shoulder. At that moment, Do-hee confirmed that Gu-won was about to kiss her. However, he laughed strangely. Immediately after, Gu-won pulled Do-hee and jumped into the river. Gu-won thought that the transfer of the mark should be done underwater, but they struggled for a long time without any reaction. Do-hee couldn't take it anymore, kicked him and swam up. Only Gu-won was left underwater, contemplating like a sage. After reaching the shore, Do-hee felt extremely disappointed. She had almost died several times today. Because of Gu-won, she had drowned twice more, so Do-hee left in a deep collapse. Meanwhile, Ju Chun-suk prayed for the courage to face the truth. The eldest son revealed his evil nature. The eldest grandson didn't seem to be a good person either. No Soo-jin, despite ending the civil war, still held a grudge against Do-hee. Even the grandson, who seemed to have no scheming intentions, wanted to compete for the position of group director. That meant that these people all had reasons to eliminate Do-hee. Suddenly, a motorcyclist threw liquid on Do-hee. Gu-won appeared from somewhere and jumped out to shield her. He also reminded her that if she took someone else's treasure, she should at least take responsibility for it. At this time, Do-hee noticed Gu-won's burned body. Before she could call for help, Gu-won grabbed her hand. Immediately, not only his skin, but also his clothes were restored to their original state. Do-hee asked who he was. The police then told them that the liquid was sulfuric acid. From there, they speculated that the assassin might be Do-hee's enemy. Do-hee remembered that Cha Tae-jun had died mysteriously, but in the end, she lied that there was no one suspicious. After the investigation was over, Gu-won took Do-hee home. On the way, he kept reminding her to take better care of herself, but in fact he was worried that the mark would disappear if something happened to Do-hee. As for Do-hee, she didn't care who Gu-won was at all, angel or devil. The important thing was that he had amazing abilities, and the tattoo that activated his ability was on her body. She immediately guessed that Gu-won wanted to use this ability, which is why he kept appearing by her side. However, Gu-won didn't have a reasonable identity. Gu-won still didn't understand what Do-hee wanted to say. Do-hee said that they were now on the same fate, therefore, they needed to think of a mutually beneficial deal. She wanted to invite Gu-won to be her bodyguard. The noble Gu-won naturally disagreed with this proposal. Do-hee convinced her that it wasn't him protecting her, but the mark on her hand. She also added that if she died, he would have a big headache. Gu-won was startled when he heard these words, because he also did not know what would happen. Do-hee frankly said that her current situation was very dangerous. She did not know who the other party was and why they wanted to kill her. As for Gu-won, he needed a mark to use his ability. Gu-won looked at Do-hee and then looked at Tattoo. He did not answer right away. When he reached the door, Gu-won refused Do-hee's offer to be her bodyguard, but in reality, he acted no differently than a bodyguard. The news anchor said that the department head Cha Tae-jun had left this world by himself in a restroom. Do-hee immediately called Ju Chun-suk to ask if there had been anything happening at the company recently. She said frankly that she had received a call from Cha Tae-jun yesterday. He said that he had important news. At that time, Do-hee misunderstood it as blackmail and did not pay much attention, but the news reported that he had left this world by himself. Do-hee always felt that something was wrong. After listening, Ju Chun-suk told Do-hee to manage the subsidiary well. After finishing the call, she immediately hung up and turned to phone the secretary, instructing her to gather all the documents related to Cha Tae-jun's passing. At the same time, she also needed a financial report for the past 10 years. However, after looking up all the information, Ju Chun-suk frankly called herself blind. On the other side, the butler smelled the smell of burning animals. Gu-won looked back and realized that he had spontaneously combusted. This meant that the demon's counterproductive effect had begun. He immediately called Do-hee and told her to wait at home. He would also be there soon. As soon as the two met, Gu-won took the initiative to say that he would be Do-hee's bodyguard, but the condition was that she had to go somewhere with him first. In less than a second, they were on the roof of a 100-meter-high building because this was the ideal place for Gu-won to find a contract partner. Before Do-hee could cry, Gu-won had already found the contract partner. After that, Gu-won teleported Do-hee to the hospital. A mother was praying for her child with leukemia to survive, even if it was just for one day. Gu-won gently pushed the wall of the hospital room. He affirmed that he could fulfill her wish. The condition was that as long as she signed a contract with him, he would guarantee that the child would be healthy and safe for the next 10 years. At first, the mother of course did not believe it, but suddenly the child's condition worsened. Gu-won immediately said that they did not have much time left, and he would let the mother witness his ability with her own eyes. The child's breathing gradually became regular. All of his indicators also returned to normal. Gu-won took this opportunity to call out contract. At this time, 3 of his fingers were burned. He said that if they signed the contract, the mother would go to hell in 10 years later. The mother still wanted to ask for clarification, but Gu-won asked her to decide immediately. If not, he would find someone else. Do-hee saw this and stood by to plead. She hoped that Gu-won would give the mother more time to think, but Gu-won firmly said that there was no more time. Before he could finish, the mother had already agreed to sign the contract. Through this incident, Do-hee changed her attitude towards Gu-won. She thought that he took advantage of others' despair in exchange for time to live. Every moment he lived was built on the misfortune of others, but Gu-won thought that he had saved a family, at least that child. In short, the two people's views had conflicted. Do-hee no longer needed the demon as a bodyguard. Meanwhile, Ju Chun-soo had investigated who hired the assassin. She scolded the other party that if he made a mistake, he would have to pay the price. This person appeared to be obedient on the outside, but in his heart he was thinking about eliminating Ju Chun-soo. That afternoon, Do-hee was discussing business when she happened to see the child with leukemia. She watched the family of 3 happily together. She finally understood why the mother was willing to sign the contract. She also understood more about what Gu-won had done. On her way home that evening, Do-hee received a text message from her foster mother. The text message said that she was leaving and would meet Do-hee in heaven. Do-hee thought it was another joke, but when she called back, no one answered, so she and Gu-won went to the flower garden. But when they entered, they discovered that Ju Chun-soo was no longer breathing. Do-hee immediately panicked and hurriedly begged Gu-won to save her foster mother. It was a pity that Gu-won could not bring the dead back to life. Do-hee cried and sobbed after hearing this. Very quickly, Ju Chun-sook's funeral took place on time. All the relatives cried and mourned. Only Do-hee did not shed a single tear. She remembered when her parents passed away. Ju Chun-sook had come to the funeral to burn incense, and she herself also could not cry at that time. Ju Chun-sook said that her parents died because of her. Do-hee said that birthdays were not important. It was all her fault for urging her parents to hurry up. Ju Chun-sook walked up to Do-hee and asked her if she was a god. Could she decide the life and death of others? Do-hee angrily grabbed Ju Chun-sook by the collar and hit her repeatedly. The girl accidentally pulled down her sunglasses. It turned out that the eyes behind the sunglasses had been red and swollen for a long time. Ju Chun-sook did this because she was afraid that the child would harm herself. Ju Seo-kun's appearance brought Do-hee back to reality. He revealed that Ju Chun-sook had established a monitoring group before his death. That monitoring group has now been suspended by the board. No Soo-jin heard their conversation and told them to look at the eldest son. The directors were busy showing their loyalty, so how could they have time to manage the monitoring group's affairs? No Soo-jin also mentioned that her mother had sent the eldest son to jail for drunk driving that year. She then reminded Do-hee not to think that she could associate with Ju Seo-kun. After all, the eldest son still had the blood of the Ju family flowing through his veins, and Do-hee was just from an ordinary family, making a living off of other people's machines and hair. In short, Ju Chun-sook had passed away. From then on, No Soo-jin was no longer afraid of anyone. At this moment, No Soo-jin's twins caused trouble. All the attendees, including the late chairman's relatives, were filled with smiles. It didn't look like a funeral but a party. Do-hee really couldn't stand the atmosphere, so she chose to leave. She just happened to pass by the assassin disguised as a security guard. He went straight to the surveillance camera control room. Do-hee had just arrived at the flower garden, and No Do-jung followed right behind. Do-hee said that Ju Chun-sook hated the smell of cigarettes, but she had passed away. No Do-jung said that everything belonged to his father. It would be his again soon. Obviously not liking Ju Chun-sook, he even said that today was a good day. Do-hee couldn't stand it when she heard this. No Do-jung even wanted to get physical. Peering in time to resolve the emergency, the camera changes. All the relatives gathered in the living room, waiting for the police to report cause of the chairman's death. According to the police's drug test results, Ju Chun-sook took diclofenac that day, and she died of cardiac arrest. Hearing this, Do-hee said that Ju Chun-suk was allergic to this drug, but the police found that the medicine bottle and the medicine at the scene did not match, so they mentioned this detail. At this time, the eldest daughter-in-law suspected that the chairman died of a medical accident. No Soo-jin thought the person who prescribed the medicine was Dr. Choi, so how could such a mistake have occurred? Do-hee suddenly understood. If what Cha Tae-jun said was referring to evidence of someone's corruption, that's why the assassin had killed Ju Chun-suk, to prevent her from investigating further. That meant the real assassin was at the scene. The police asked who knew about Ju Chun-suk's allergy to diclofenac. Her attending physician and everyone present knew. In an instant, the living room became eerily silent. Suddenly, the eldest son proposed to announce to the public that the chairman died of cardiac arrest. All the family members present agreed. After finishing, they rushed to the funeral scene because they were about to announce the will. Do-hee followed and said that Ju Chun-suk did not die from the collision but was eliminated, but she did not say who among those people it was, whether it was her or him, or if they were all accomplices. Ju Chun-suk left a conditional will. In addition to giving away all the real estate in Hannam, all the shares and management rights of the group were transferred to her adopted daughter Do-hee, but the condition was that she had to register her marriage within a year of Ju Chun-suk's death. If she didn't fulfill the condition, the property would be donated to charity. In addition, she left letters for each family member. Do-hee looked at the tattoo on her wrist and warned everyone that whoever wanted the property should kill her, because she decided that even if she had to cooperate with the demon, she had to clarify the truth. Then she walked towards Gu-won and said, "Marry me." The daughter of a multi-billionaire conglomerate took the initiative to propose to the bodyguard at the funeral. However, Gu-won rejected her without hesitation in front of nearly 100 guests. The situation became extremely awkward. His reason was that they should have a clear boundary between work and love. Apart from being surprised, the other family members were also extremely upset. No Soo-jin did not expect that she had been deceived by her mother. She screamed and asked No Suk-min to think of a solution, but the inheritance had already exceeded the legal limit. Even if they sued, they would not be able to get anything. It turned out that 12 years ago, No Suk-min was driving drunk and was caught by the police. Ju Chun-suk told her eldest son that if he made a mistake, he had to pay the price. This made him resentful. He had always thought that his mother had abandoned him, but looking at No Suk-min's expression, he knew that he would definitely not give up. At this time, No Do-kyung was still smoking in the flower garden. He and his father really had similar personalities. After leaving the funeral, Do-hee tried to use all kinds of excuses to hide her embarrassment. To adjust the atmosphere, she asked Gu-won to play a song, but when the song started, she kept changing to other songs. After returning home, Do-hee said that she wouldn't make things difficult for Gu-won because of today's incident. Then she went straight to her apartment without looking back. She even forgot the letter Ju Chun-suk sent her in the car. However, the more Do-hee thought about it, the angrier she got when she got home. She screamed to vent all her frustration. Gu-won stood outside the door holding the mom letter and was too scared to ring the doorbell. He also heard even more terrifying threats. He only heard something about a demon and something about tying a rope around neck, and if she pulled him, she would drag him to the wedding. If not, she would use an elephant-catching anesthetic gun to aim at his neck. Gu-won was a demon, but at this moment, he was also afraid of the rage of someone who had just had the marriage proposal rejected. He leaned against the wall to calm down and then ran home with great difficulty. As soon as Do-hee turned around, the doorbell rang. It turned out to be Ju Suk-hoon. If Do-hee wanted to clarify the cause of Ju Chun-suk's death, they needed to set up a monitoring team. Ju Suk-hoon used the excuse that he was worried about her to advise her to give up. However, Do-hee had already made up her mind. She had long since given up on her own safety. In addition, Ju Suk-hoon advised Do-hee not to rush into marriage. She also didn't need to find a blind date, but in fact, Do-hee didn't know why she made such a decision, but she could be sure that Gu-won had saved her twice. After they finished talking, Ju Suk-hoon prepared to leave. He had also saved his phone number in Do-hee's emergency contact information. As soon as he left, Do-hee came across a news headline, Conglomerate Heir Rejected in Marriage Proposal. Furthermore, the press also published an article about Gu-won. This matter became very noisy very quickly. Gu-won received a call from Do-hee. She asked for the two to meet immediately. Do-hee misunderstood that her status was a burden to him, so if he agreed immediately, it would seem trivial, but Gu-won really did not want to get married. He also did not understand why she chose him. He asked if it was possible for people to say sincere words when they were in a hurry. Do-hee said that they were not sincere words. Gu-won asked back that then why should he indulge her unreasonable actions when she was not in her right mind? If she wanted to find someone who would unconditionally marry her, she should find someone else. Hearing Gu-won say that, Do-hee angrily turned around and left. Gu-won was worried that she would be splashed with acid again, so he decided to take her home. On the way, Do-hee fell asleep in sadness. When she got to the apartment building, She still didn't wake up. Gu-won carefully put the letter back in her pocket and deliberately shook the car to wake Do-hee up. He also made an excuse that her snoring was too loud. After entering the room, Do-hee took the initiative to save Gu-won's phone number as an emergency contact. Then, she opened Ju Chun's letter to read. In the letter, her foster mother said that if Do-hee received this letter, it would mean that she had left her alone again. She hoped that her death would not become Do-hee's pain. Shedding tears once was enough. The position she had left her was a battlefield where tears were not allowed. Her foster mother seemed to have succeeded, but in fact she had failed. She had been surrounded by bad people. If Do-hee were to sit in this position, she should find someone who wouldn't make her feel lonely and support her. If she couldn't find it, then she should treat this position as food to throw to the wolves. No Sok-min disagreed with the police's autopsy and hastily cremated Ju Chun-suk's body. Do-hee was confident that she could do it on her own. The next day, Gu-won had a dream. He dreamed of fragments of his memories as a human. The butler thought that a demon without power was just a normal human who had recovered his memories. Compared to spontaneous combustion, Gu-won needed to be more careful with collisions. He should have stopped talking about immortality and worried about when he would grow old. Hearing this, Gu-won could no longer remain calm. He found that he seemed to have wrinkles at the corners of his eyes. He was screaming to get his mark back, but the matter of the bodyguard rejecting the proposal of the young lady of the financial group had become extremely noisy. Do-hee did not want to destroy the company's image. The important thing was, how could she let the man reject her, but held her hand whenever he wanted. Gu-won was forced to admit that he no longer had magic powers. Just like a human, he was gradually starting to age. In other words, he saw Do-hee as a charger. After Do-hee knew the truth, she even more refused to let Gu-won charge it. At least he could not hold her hands whenever he wanted. All day long, Gu-won kept thinking about his mark but was always rejected by Do-hee. Coincidentally, the elevator was playing an advertisement about aging. He looked at the advertisement and then at the mark. He could only use the word longing to describe his feelings at that moment. Unexpectedly, the secretary reported that she had obtained the family surveillance video. Because Ju Chun-suk's medicine was in her pocket, Do-hee was sure that a camera would capture the mastermind. Gu-won lazily tried to escape but was immediately pulled back by Do-hee. Then the two of them watched the video forever without finishing it. Gu-won felt a bit overwhelmed. He felt that instead of using this method to find the assassin, it would be better to use his ability to quickly clarify the truth. Do-hee asked why he didn't tell her earlier. Gu-won said that she didn't ask either. Do-hee took the initiative to give Gu-won the wrist with the mark, but Gu-won made two requests. After catching the assassin, she had to continue to cooperate until the mark recovered. Second, no matter where, no matter when, she had to allow him to charge. In the end, under the demon's charm, Do-hee agreed. Then Gu-won confidently snapped his fingers, but nothing happened in the office. This made Do-hee look down on him. However, the snap of his fingers was about to create fire, but nothing happened. It was possible that the magic power had disappeared. Gu-won looked at the pen and snapped his finger, and it worked this time. If that was the case, Gu-won would snap their fingers again. They immediately appeared at the company warehouse and stood in the narrow hallway. Suddenly, outside, the employees' voices were heard. Some people guessed that Do-hee and Gu-won were definitely dating because only with a pre-existing emotional foundation would Do-hee propose. Some people found office romance very interesting. Some even suggested organizing a meal, gathering everyone together, and they would know right away. Either way, they would secretly hold hands under the table without letting everyone know. Gu-won and Do-hee were both embarrassed. When they heard this, their fingers accidentally touched, making them even more embarrassed. The two wanted to leave quickly, but something went wrong. In the confusion, Gu-won couldn't grab Do-hee's wrist. In the end, Gu-won accidentally made a loud noise. When the employees opened the warehouse, Gu-won had already led Do-hee to the roof. It turned out that in order to find the assassin, Gu-won had to rely on the other person's face. However, there was one very strange point. He had clearly seen the other person's face. Gu-won suspected that the assassin had had plastic surgery. In fact, the assassin was wearing a human skin mask. It really couldn't be blamed on Gu-won's ability. That night, Do-hee discovered that the surveillance video had been tampered with. The video was mysteriously missing 20 minutes of footage. At this time, Ju Seo-kun called to inform that Cha Tae-jun's laptop had also been wiped clean by someone. Afterwards, Do-hee and Gu-won attended a company employee gathering. As Gu-won grabbed Do-hee's wrist, the female employee's chopsticks fell. She bent down to pick up her chopsticks and happened to see this scene. It was pitiful that she had liked Gu-won for so long. The male employee questioned why Gu-won rejected Do-hee. At this time, he said the first sentence that liking pork did not necessarily mean being around pigs. When Do-hee heard this, she felt like Gu-won was calling her a pig. She pulled her hand away and left the restaurant. Gu-won was naive and did not understand what was happening. He also asked her why she did not let him recharge his battery. Do-hee was about to explain clearly, but when she turned around, she found that Gu-won had disappeared. disappeared. It turned out that Gu-won had had enough of these repetitive emotions. He would rather die of old age, but when he thought about it carefully, he was worried that something bad would happen to Do-hee. At this moment, the gang boss's subordinates came to take revenge. Gu-won lost his ability but still picked up the newspaper and prepared to fight. Who would have thought that the next second he would immediately turn around and run away? At this time, Do-hee couldn't help but worry about Gu-won, but she couldn't contact him. In the end, Gu-won was blocked by thugs on the walking street. He was hit by a thug and lost his balance. When the 200-year-old demon was about to be finished off, a whistle suddenly sounded. That's right, it was Do-hee who came here. Although she was scared and opened her eyes wide, she took out the electric baton without hesitation. She introduced herself as her bodyguard's bodyguard. Coincidentally, the electric baton ran out of battery at this moment. Do-hee took out a gun again. Then she shot out a white smoke and passed through the crowd to reach out to Gu-won. Gu-won was recharged and immediately regained his strength. He dealt with the thugs quickly. They didn't know that the whole process had been recorded by the assassin. After Gu-won took Do-hee home, his attitude completely changed. He didn't say a word and turned around to leave. In fact, he tried to appear calm to hide his inner emotions. His heart, which had been frozen for 200 years, had unconsciously started to beat erratically because of Do-hee. Gu-won immediately rushed back to the office and speculated about what the problem was. How could he be moved by a human? Could this have something to do with the mark on the other side? Do-hee thought more and more and became angrier. She wondered what Gu-won's disdainful gaze was. It was obvious that he wanted to grab her wrist. He had just escaped danger and was already treating her like an invisible person. Was it just her who was moved? It was obvious that he was moved too. Do-hee said it was okay, but thinking about it, she still felt uneasy, so she immediately called a taxi to the Sunwell Fund managed by Gu-won. Do-hee found an excuse for this trip while walking towards the Hee office. Suddenly, she realized there was murderous intent behind her. She quickly pulled out her gun and confronted the person behind her. It turned out that this person was Jin Ga-young. She had liked the demon Gu-won for a long time, but he did not reciprocate. Jin Ga-young recognized her rival at first sight. She immediately used the excuse that it was not performance time to chase away the guests. However, Do-hee said something to provoke Jin Ga-young, saying that her relationship with Gu-won was very special. After saying that, Do-hee left without even looking back. When Do-hee arrived at the inner office, she saw that no one was there. Then she was immediately attracted to the deepest room. There were thousands of identical clocks on display. The strange thing was that each clock only showed 10 o'clock. Do-hee admired Gu-won's aesthetic taste. Then she suddenly noticed a shiny object on the bookshelf, but this object was placed a bit high, so even if she stood on tiptoe, she couldn't reach it. Suddenly, Gu-won appeared and asked her if it was impolite to touch other people's things. Do-hee arrogantly said that she didn't touch his things. Then she suddenly noticed the necklace around Gu-won's neck. She thought to herself, aren't demons afraid of the cross? However, Gu-won mistook her for a woman with bad intentions. The atmosphere instantly became extremely awkward. Jin Ga-young, who was eavesdropping outside, couldn't stand it, so she went in and showed her closeness to Gu-won right in front of Do-hee. Her words were as if they were lovers. After Jin Ga-young left, Do-hee asked Gu-won directly why he had left silently just now. Gu-won replied that he just didn't want to be with her. As a result, she still came here to bother him. After hearing that, Do-hee left the office in anger. She felt that she had been having an emotional illusion. However, Gu-won immediately called the butler and asked him to secretly escort Do-hee home. On the other side, the assassin informed a mysterious person that the video was in the locker. The mysterious person then gave the assassin a mission. The plan was to wait until Gu-won wasn't by Do-hee's side, then kill her immediately. The next morning, Gu-won took Do-hee to the company as usual, but one person walked in front, the other behind without any interaction. That scene made the employees start whispering. Last night, they were clearly holding hands, but today they didn't even talk to each other. They must have argued about something. Actually, Gu-won didn't have the mind to work. He hid in the break room, drinking coffee alone, but there was one person who could deal with him. That was the female secretary that everyone in the company feared. Meanwhile, a delivery man whose face was hard to see and very suspicious entered the office. He looked around, seemingly searching for a target. Coincidentally, Do-hee had to go out at this time. As soon as she stepped out of the office, the delivery man followed. As soon as his ghostly hand reached out, Secretary Shin pushed him from behind. Hearing the noise, Gu-won immediately shielded Do-hee. He worriedly asked if she was hurt. His sudden concern made Do-hee unable to react. Secretary Shin immediately tore off the delivery man's helmet. His head had already been hit and turned the other way. However, after seeing his face clearly, Gu-won realized that it was his butler. It turned out that the butler was worried that Gu-won was not in a good condition, but he didn't dare to run around at the company, so he thought of a way to disguise himself as a delivery man. Thanks to the butler, Gu-won, who had been trying to pretend not to care about Do-hee, was finally exposed. While the two were arguing, Do-hee brought Secretary Shin to to apologize, but when the butler saw Secretary Shin, he was still scared and unconsciously made a defensive move. Although Secretary Shin said sorry, her attitude was as if the one at fault had been Gu-won's butler. Do-hee's side said that in addition to being responsible for medical expenses, they also wanted to compensate for mental damage. Won's side initially showed no interest, but when they realized the amount of money wasn't small, they figured it might not be such a bad idea after all. However, before they could say anything, Do-hee withdrew and said she wouldn't force them anymore. Everyone had no idea that the real assassin was secretly observing everything because Ju Chun-suk had passed away suddenly and had added a condition in the will that Do-hee had to get married within a year. The group currently had no one to make a decision. Therefore, the shareholders decided to elect No Seok-min as acting chairman. In fact, all of this had been arranged by No Seok-min. His son was furious when he heard the news. As a result, No Seok-min was elected as the acting chairman with more than half of the votes. After the meeting ended, No Soo-jin warned Do-hee that none of the directors would support her, so she shouldn't even dream about becoming the chairman. Do-hee said that she should be disappointed because she would soon see Do-hee become the chairman. No Soo-jin replied that she wouldn't let Do-hee sit still in the chairman's position. Do-hee said that she was looking forward to seeing what No Soo-jin's next move would be. No Seok-min heard the argument and came to stop it. He took the opportunity to advise Do-hee as a brother. After all, rushing anything was not good, especially when it came to big things like marriage. Do-hee should slowly look for a suitable partner. Do-hee reminded him to rest assured that she wouldn't keep him waiting for long. No Do-jung walked over and told Do-hee that the tattoo looked pretty good. Do-hee had never mentioned it to anyone before, and she wondered how he knew. No Soo-jin left and immediately wanted to win Gu-won over. She found him cold and charming, but Gu-won had no interest at all. Ju Seok-hoon was always by Do-hee's side, and since they were relatives, they appeared quite close. Their intimate words made Gu-won feel jealous and possessive. Ju Seok-hoon had investigated that the corporation had ordered a ship at a high price from a company 2 years ago. However, not only was the ship nowhere to be found, but even the seller had stopped operating. This was a typical method of falsifying records. Gu-won saw Ju Seok-hoon talking to Do-hee, and his anger kept rising. He unconsciously glanced at her in the car. Do-hee felt that gaze, and frankly said that she would not let herself be delusional in the future. Gu-won also expressed his attitude clearly. He said that it was best for them to stay like this. The police tried everything, but still could not find the assassin's whereabouts. Do-hee thought that only by pretending to be bait could she punish the assassin. After that, she left the police station. The two of them went to a restaurant to meet Do-hee's previous blind date. The blind date was a prosecutor. Not only did he have an ordinary appearance, but he was also a womanizer. Prosecutor only said vulgar, flirtatious words, but thought himself was very romantic. In reality, he just made people want to slap him in the mouth. Gu-won really couldn't stand this person. He secretly teased the blind date a little, but Do-hee didn't have time to play around with him. After the prosecutor finished treating his wound, Do-hee immediately proposed marriage because she needed a partner who could deal with the tycoons. Gu-won said that even so, she couldn't choose this prosecutor. Do-hee asked again what her business had to do with him. This question left Gu-won speechless. In fact, this marriage was just a mission for Do-hee. Who the other person was completely unimportant. On the way back, Do-hee told Secretary Shin to prepare for the wedding. Gu-won became more and more upset when he heard this. He made an excuse that he couldn't stand her forced sadness and wanted to use his own way to find the real assassin. Right after that, Gu-won went before the vengeful subordinate. He forced the subordinate to immediately bring the person in the painting here. Of course, the subordinate did not obey easily. Just at that moment, Gu-won was also angry and did not know where to vent his anger. Just then, a glass slowly rose into the air and flew straight at the subordinate. Then a fork. This time it tore the subordinate's cheek. Immediately after that, everything on the table flew up at the same time. Do-hee was worried that Gu-won might cause a serious crime. At the moment when the objects were about to fly towards the subordinate, Do-hee immediately pulled her hand back. She did not understand why Gu-won was so angry. However, Gu-won said that the problem was with her. Before meeting her, his life had been still fine, but since it involved her, things became complicated. Do-hee angrily said that that was enough. She would let him leave. So the two people with high self-esteem finally separated. Not long after, Secretary Shin took Do-hee home. They did not know that the assassin had also followed them downstairs. Suddenly, music came from the living room. Do-hee mustered up her courage to open the door. She was slowly walking out when the assassin suddenly covered her mouth. However, Do-hee had already sent out a distress signal. After she woke up, she found herself hanging high up. The assassin then leisurely cut the rope. Suddenly, he heard a noise outside. The first thing he thought of was to escape. Just like that, Gu-won appeared in time and grabbed Do-hee's wrist. However, before the two could celebrate, the assassin suddenly turned back. He attacked, causing Gu-won and Do-hee to fall headfirst down below. Fortunately, the mark received the signal in time, and suddenly two people appeared In the hallway, Do-hee regained her composure and hugged Gu-won tightly, sobbing. This scene happened to be seen by Ju Seo-kun. Not long after, the three of them returned to the apartment. The door lock was broken, and the assassin had escaped. Do-hee recalled that the assassin seemed to enjoy her frightened expression, as if he was enjoying the whole process. Suddenly, she thought of the phone that played the surveillance video. She was surprised to find that this assassin and the assassin in the taxi were different in appearance, but Gu-won noticed that the wound on his neck was identical. He suspected that the assassin had changed his face. That was why the police couldn't find him. It also meant that the assassin had undergone plastic surgery. Ju Seo-kun then called Gu-won into another room. He asked if two were hiding something from him. Gu-won asked what he wanted to know in what capacity. Ju Seo-kun said that he was the only one standing beside Do-hee. Gu-won said that he didn't have to worry because he wasn't the only one standing beside her. On the other side, Do-hee went out to the balcony to breathe. As soon as she approached the railing, she accidentally remembered what had just happened. Her whole body immediately tensed up. She thought that she had taken death too lightly. She also didn't know what death really meant. She felt like the world she believed in was completely collapsing, and she had become a lonely person. She thought that after waking up tomorrow, anyone could be an assassin. Maybe that person would appear with a different face and silently wait for the right moment. Ju Seo-kun could understand Do-hee. He suddenly proposed marriage at this moment. Gu-won also made a similar request. Do-hee was momentarily at a loss for what to choose. She said she needed time to think it over. The next day, Gu-won was in no mood to work. The butler happened to come looking for him, so they went down to the first floor lobby to do something useless. Do-hee went to see Assistant Choi, who liked to play tarot in the company. She tried to find the answer in the cards. Then she drew the Wheel of Fate card. This card usually meant reunion or meeting again. Although fate was arranged by destiny, it was like a wheel that constantly turned within a framework, but the direction of rotation depends on the wood and intelligence of the person. The number 10 on the Wheel of Fate card symbolizes the end and a completely new beginning. Meanwhile, Gu-won noticed Ju Seo-kun entering the company with a flower pot. He entered Do-hee's office and gave the flower pot to her, but because of the proposal last night, the atmosphere became very awkward. Suddenly, Do-hee burst out laughing out of embarrassment. Ju Seo-kun couldn't help but laugh too. Witnessing this scene made Gu-won, who was standing outside, agitated. He felt like he was jealous. Then he immediately denied his own feelings. He thought that he completely didn't understand why humans were jealous. Ju Seo-kun took the opportunity to express that the proposal wasn't just a spur-of-the-moment thing. When he heard that Do-hee went on a blind date, his heart started beating very fast. Gu-won's proposal last night made him extremely jealous. Only then did he understand his feelings for Do-hee. Do-hee frankly expressed that she had always considered Ju Seo-kun as a relative. Unexpectedly, Ju Seo-kun said that they should become real family in the future. After all, Do-hee needed to get married anyway, so he suggested that they start by becoming a family. In the afternoon, Gu-won could not contain his doubts. He asked why Do-hee had made him and Ju Seo-kun her emergency contacts. Do-hee did not answer directly, but instead was curious as to why Gu-won had rejected her before. Why did he want to get married now? Gu-won just said that there was no reason. Soon after, the two of them went to the corporation's groundbreaking ceremony. No Suk-min was so nervous when he saw Do-hee that he forgot his speech. Do-hee informed No Suk-min that she was getting married the next day because it was urgent. She hadn't printed an invitation. They were all family, after all, so she hoped her older brother would understand her. When Do-hee was about to leave, she found a worker with a wound on his neck. The groom suddenly interrupted the MC. In the car, Gu-won said bluntly that the reason he wanted to marry Do-hee was because he didn't want her to die. Therefore, the two decided to get married under an agreement that they would support each other in achieving their goals. The deadline was set for the day all the goals were achieved. While waiting for the wedding, Do-hee seemed to see Ju Chon-soo. In Do-hee's imagination, her foster mother kept complaining about her. She scolded her, asking how she could entrust something as important as the wedding dress to the secretary. The most hated person in this family had been her. Do-hee said that she had really wanted her foster mother to be the one to preside over the wedding, but she was worried that her speech would be too stiff. Her foster mother said that even though she was already dead, Do-hee was still teasing her. Do-hee asked her how she had been doing there, if she had been living well. The foster mother asked Do-hee if she knew where she was. Do-hee had heard that rich people couldn't go to heaven, but her foster mother couldn't go to hell either, because no matter who it was, as long as they had understood Ju Chon-soo, they would know that she had truly been good. Then Do-hee wondered where she had gone, that she had left Do-hee here alone. The foster mother replied that she was in Do-hee's memory. Other than that place, where else could she have gone? Do-hee's eyes immediately turned red as if she was about to cry. Very quickly, the wedding ceremony officially began. The groom was the demon Gu-won, but the happiest people were the butler and the secretary. secretary. These two were competing to see who could clap louder. As for No Soo-jin, as a family member, she cursed Do-hee to fail. Suddenly, Do-hee noticed No Suk-min's eldest son. He had a very scary smile on his face. However, the wedding was still going on, so Do-hee didn't think much of it. Then, a bystander suggested that the couple kiss. At first, Gu-won refused. However, Do-hee reminded him that the contract stipulated that the two of them had to portray the image of an ideal couple. If that was the case, Gu-won lifted Do-hee's cheeks and slowly moved closer. Just as their lips were about to touch, he used his thumb to cover the middle, but that still made Do-hee's heart beat fast, and she felt extremely embarrassed. This scene was coincidentally seen by Ju Suk-hoon. When taking a personal photo, Ju Suk-hoon also asked her if he was too bad. Do-hee said that he was always a family member she could rely on. When Gu-won turned around and saw Do-hee and Ju Suk-hoon happily chatting, he immediately showed his displeasure and went straight to Do-hee. He called Do-hee honey and told her to go home with him. He even deliberately asked if he should call her honey or wife. What a classic way to assert his sovereignty. He also warned Ju Suk-hoon not to look at other people's wives with that look again. After the wedding ceremony ended, the newlyweds returned home. Seeing the messy house, the husband immediately protected his wife. He thought it was an assassin breaking into the house again, but in reality, it was because Do-hee had been busy preparing for the wedding recently and had no time to clean up. Gu-won really couldn't bear to watch this scene, so he used magic to make the pile of things clean up automatically. On the other side, Ju Suk-hoon felt that he could not give up. He began to investigate the Sunwol Fund managed by Gu-won. Unexpectedly, he discovered that this company was established in 1977. At the same time, Do-hee recalled No Kyung's unusual behavior after Ju Chun-suk's death, plus his suspicious smile at the wedding today. She could not help but suspect that he was the one behind everything. After taking a shower, Gu-won and Do-hee looked at each other. Each of them said unrelated things, making the atmosphere awkward. That night, although the two were in separate rooms, they had a hard time sleeping. The next morning, Gu-won was awakened by a noise. He angrily walked out of the room, intending to scold his wife but had to stop. Seeing his wife eating breakfast with an irresistibly adorable expression, Gu-won suddenly lost all his anger. However, he still loudly scolded his wife for doing something so early in the morning. Do-hee shot back with, "Am I already this pretty so early in the morning?" A question that left her demon husband completely speechless. Because it was the weekend, Do-hee wanted to investigate No Do-jung a bit, so she disguised herself as a middle-aged woman, but immediately, Do-hee was criticized by Gu-won. Whoosh! The two of them moved to the men's restroom. Just then, No Do-jung walked in. He said that he almost killed someone just now. The coach came to ask why, but this person thought that killing someone was not a big deal. Do-hee and Gu-won followed No Do-jung all the way. They noticed that his alertness was very high, especially when he parked his car in the parking lot and transferred to the subway. It seemed like he was deliberately hiding something. Suddenly, Gu-won and Do-hee moved to the photo booth. Do-hee thought that Gu-won was a fan of closed rooms. He always took her to such strange places. They saw No Do-gung open the public locker. At this moment, they seemed to have been discovered by him. No Do-gung approached them step by step. However, for some unknown reason, Gu-won's magic powers suddenly disappeared. They could no longer teleport. At the crucial moment, Gu-won turned around, lifted Do-hee's face, and directly kissed her. No Do-jung did not detect anything unusual, so he lowered the curtain and left. However, after the kiss, the contract couple did not know what to say. The atmosphere was extremely awkward. Do-hee still remembered to follow No Do-jung. She walked towards the public locker first. Gu-won picked up the photo and couldn't help but recall the scene just now. At this moment, Do-hee discovered that there was nothing in the closet. Suddenly, someone appeared behind them. She looked like a beggar. Gu-won saw this and grabbed Do-hee's hand and pulled her away. The beggar woman said to herself, "The hit was quite hard. It'll stop eventually." Gu-won thought that it was just a normal person who had lost her soul and was acting strangely, so he didn't think much of it and left. But when he walked out of the subway station, he felt a little uneasy. He used magic on a flower and saw that the bud immediately bloomed. He thought that proved that everything was normal, but he didn't know that after the two of them left, the flower immediately withered. They followed No Do-kyung to the front door. When Do-hee was about to discuss the next strategy, she accidentally looked at Gu-won's lips. She suddenly remembered the kiss just now, and her face immediately turned red. After the two returned home, Gu-won tried to find out the reason why his magic power disappeared. He suddenly remembered that the day the mark was transferred was also the day his magic power suddenly stopped listening to him. He was also almost hit by a car and died, so Gu-won concluded that the problem was with Do-hee. When Do-hee heard this, she thought he was blaming her. She said that if he felt so miserable, then did not do it. Did he think she was happy? Gu-won said that if she wasn't happy, then how could he be happy? After saying this, Gu-won felt embarrassed and found an excuse to avoid it. Do-hee realized the meaning of the sentence and also shyly covered her face. On the other side, Ju Suk-hoon found a picture of a young Gu-won in an old newspaper from the last century. At this time, Gu-won was moving important things to the new house. There were so many things that there was not enough space in the living room. Do-hee immediately pulled him into the bedroom to talk privately. The house was where the two of them lived together. Unnecessary things had to be moved. In the end, the two of them could not reach a consensus, so there was a scene where Gu-won was kicked out. Because of his strange pride, Gu-won had no intention of returning. At this time, the butler informed him that Jin Ga-young had disappeared. After knowing that Gu-won was getting married, the butler hoped that Gu-won could come out to look for her. On the other side, Ju Seok-hoon called Do-hee and said that there were some important things he wanted to talk to her privately. When he arrived at the house, it just so happened that Gu-won was still in the car. Ju Seok-hoon probed Do-hee to find out how much she knew about him before getting married. Do-hee said it wasn't anything too profound. He took out a yellowed photo from his pocket, which was taken in 1977 at the Sunwol Foundation, and it showed a young Gu-won. Do-hee saw that Ju Seok-hoon had discovered evidence of the demon. She confirmed that the person in the photo was the former chairman of the Sunwol Foundation, who was also Gu-won's grandfather. After that, she even expressed admiration for the power of genetics, which led Ju Seok-hoon to temporarily let the matter slide. When Ju Seok-hoon left, he found Gu-won searching for a signal in the parking lot, so he went up to Gu-won and invited him out for a drink. Ju Seok-hoon said bluntly that there were many secrets between Gu-won and Do-hee that he didn't know about. He guessed that Gu-won wasn't human at all. In general, he found it very suspicious and a bit hateful, so he decided to keep a close eye on Gu-won in the future. Once he discovered that Gu-won had the ability to harm Do-hee, he would definitely not let it go easily. Gu-won asked what the other party wanted. Ju Seok-hoon said that of course he would expose Gu-won's secret and let the whole world know. Gu-won only felt that he had another annoying fan. After returning to the company, Gu-won told the butler about his unstable ability. The butler thought that the lapse of his ability might be related to the process of becoming a human again. The longer the mark was lost, the more memories would recover. Gu-won thought about it and found it to be true. He realized that he had been acting unusually recently, like he had more unnecessary emotions. He guessed that when the mark returned to his wrist, his abilities and emotions would probably return to normal. After just one day of marriage, Gu-won came home in the middle of the night and he was discovered by Do-hee. He even asked his wife to let him recharge his energy. Meanwhile, the assassin sneaked into the Sunwol Foundation office. First, he installed a listening device under the table, and then he targeted the demon's instruction manual. On the other side, the charging that Gu-won was talking about was actually holding Do-hee's wrist. He was worried that if he lost the mark for too long, he would completely become human. Do-hee thought to herself that she shouldn't use power carelessly, but when she was about to say it, she held back a bit. This made Gu-won feel a little embarrassed, and he urged her to go to sleep quickly. Do-hee said that holding hands like this would make it impossible to sleep. The next morning, Gu-won woke up first and turned to look at Do-hee. Surprisingly, Do-hee, who had her eyes still closed, changed her position and turned towards him. He couldn't deny that the demon had also developed feelings for the woman in front of him. While Gu-won was busy looking at her, Do-hee also woke up. She looked at Gu-won on the opposite side, and she was so nervous that she couldn't breathe. Just then, Secretary Shin called. It turned out that many bloggers had spread rumors claiming that the day Ju Chun-suk died coincided with the last change to the will. They suspected that Do-hee had secretly harmed her foster mother for property. The news spread quickly on all platforms, and even reporters joined in writing articles. In fact, the company employees were gossiping that the masterminds of this incident were No Seok-min and No Soo-ra. The obvious purpose was to prevent Do-hee from becoming the spokesperson for the group. Ju Seok-hoon suggested that he would consult with the directors and try to attract some people who had good relations with Ju Chun-suk, while Gu-won thought that it would be better for them to directly find the source of the rumor. In the end, Do-hee listened to her husband. As soon as Ju Seok-hoon left the office, Do-hee asked Gu-won to take her somewhere. Then, Secretary Shin walked in and was extremely confused when he discovered that the two had disappeared from the office. Ju Seok-hoon was also extremely shocked when he heard this, since they were clearly still here just now. Do-hee went to No Seok-min and told him directly that she knew his plan. However, No Seok-min thought that as long as the majority of people were willing to believe it, it must be the truth. Ju Chun-suk often said that she gave birth to a devil. It turned out that the collision caused by No Seok-min that year was caused by him intentionally driving into it. From then on, No Seok-min completely turned against Do-hee to fight for power. Soon after, Gu-won and Do-hee appeared behind the rumor monger. After they clearly asked him about his desire for money and fame, the three of them immediately went to the National Treasury. Gu-won warned that as soon as the bank opened, the person who spread the rumor would be arrested as a wanted criminal, which would definitely damage his reputation. This person was so scared that he kept begging for forgiveness. The public opinion crisis was resolved. involved here. Just then, the butler called to inform that the demon user manual had disappeared. Gu-won and Do-hee appeared behind the butler in a flash. Do-hee was surprised to discover the secret of Gu-won's name, Young-won, Young-2-won, Young-3-won. Gu-won grumbled that there were only curious humans around him. Do-hee teased him that maybe in a few generations there would be a Young-10-won. Seeing the green book, she continued to wonder what it was. The butler frankly said that it recorded the origin of demons, how to use their powers and how to limit them. She did not know that their entire conversation had been overheard by the assassin. This person seemed to have discovered the taboo of demons, not to kill the living, not to resurrect the dead, and even more so, not to prevent natural disasters. Once a demon dared to interfere, he would be turned into ashes. Gu-won searched everywhere but couldn't find. He suspected Ju Seo-kun was the culprit. After all, this person suspected him. Gu-won then took Do-hee home while he attended the Sunwoo Foundation performance. Unexpectedly, the police arrested Do-hee as the suspect in the murder of Ju Chon-suk. The news quickly reached Gu-won's ears. He immediately ran towards the police station. The assassin suddenly rushed at Gu-won and stabbed him. He stomped on the dagger and prepared to finish Gu-won off with a slash. But luckily, at this moment, Gu-won finally saw half of the person's face clearly. Gu-won was quickly taken to the operating room. The condition of his injuries was very bad. Meanwhile, news of Gu-won's attack had reached police station. Do-hee begged the police captain to let her see her husband once. In fact, the captain knew that Do-hee did not harm Ju Chon-suk, and with her extremely sad expression, he finally violated the regulations and agreed to let her sneak out. On the other side, although the doctor tried his best, Gu-won had lost too much blood, and his left heart valve was severely damaged, so it was difficult for him to survive the night. At this time, Do-hee rushed to the hospital and rushed into the patient's room. Before she could take a good look at Gu-won, Jin Ga-young rushed over and blamed her for everything. The butler blocked the people who were not family outside the door. Do-hee immediately placed Gu-won's hand on the mark. This scene was coincidentally seen by Ju Seo-kun outside. After waiting for a long time, Gu-won still showed no signs of recovery. Do-hee started to get nervous. She suspected that she was too late or that he was really dead. Thinking of this, Do-hee didn't dare to think anymore. She said that he always protected her, but she couldn't do anything. Do-hee cried on Gu-won's body. At this moment, the mark lit up. Gu-won suddenly said that she was too heavy. Could she move away a little? Hearing his voice, Do-hee was very surprised. However, Gu-won felt that her crying was very funny. So funny that he didn't want to die anymore, but because of the unstable demon power, Gu-won's body only recovered half. Do-hee wanted to call the doctor but was held back by Gu-won and hugged tightly. The demon at this moment looked like a spoiled boy asking to recharge his energy. Do-hee understood that Gu-won needed her the most right now. She also tacitly accepted this action. This scene happened to be seen by Jin Ga-young. She was extremely angry and left the hospital room. Coincidentally, Ju Seo-kun also happened to witness this scene. Elsewhere, the beggar woman looked up at the crescent moon in the sky. She realized that Do-hee had saved Gu-won without knowing that it would endanger her own life. Not long after, Ju Seo-kun urged her to return to the police station. Although Do-hee was still uneasy, she was forced to do so. Jin Ga-young had always considered being Gu-won's life partner as her goal, but just now, she suddenly discovered that someone had interfered in their relationship. That night, Gu-won had a nightmare. In his dream, he was surrounded by a blazing fire. His body kept burning itself. He was always wandering in the depths of pain. Suddenly, he woke up with a start. On the other side, the police's search warrant results were in. They couldn't prove that Do-hee had harmed Ju Chon-suk. She was then immediately released. Gu-won was injured, so he asked the butler to get him some water. Plain water wasn't enough. It had to be ice water. The butler even had to insert a straw for him. He had just finished a sip when he wanted to eat breakfast. After eating breakfast, his back itched. In short, everything Gu-won did now felt meaningless. Suddenly, Do-hee walked into the hospital room. Gu-won jumped out of bed as soon as he saw her. Genuine joy was evident on his face, but Do-hee was worried about his health, so she immediately helped him lie down on the hospital bed. Gu-won said that he wanted to go home because he really couldn't stay here anymore. Do-hee objected that he still needed treatment here. Who would have thought that the domineering boss Gu-won would say something like, "Being with you is a kind of healing." Hearing that, Do-hee also lost her mind for a moment. On the other side, Ju Seo-kun seemed to understand the relationship between Gu-won and Do-hee. The key was probably that tattoo. And Do-kyung also received a message from the assassin saying that Gu-won had seen his face. Gu-won would definitely come to take revenge. That night, the couple charged their batteries at home, but the mark not only didn't light up, it didn't even blink. Do-hee suggested increasing the contact area between the two. Charging like that might be faster. Gu-won felt that it made sense. At this moment, the two of them could clearly hear each other's heartbeats. Do-hee explained that it was because she wanted to recharge batteries. They slept in the same position until the next day. However, when Do-hee woke up, she remembered Jin Ga-young's words. The hand that had been extended naturally retracted. She was also worried about Gu-won's health. She planned to let him rest at home, but Gu-won hugged her instead. He wanted to recharge for another 5 minutes. After that, the four of them got in the car and headed to the company. Do-hee took the initiative to put Gu-won's hand on her wrist. Gu-won asked if she had said that she shouldn't recharge her batteries in front of others. Do-hee replied that they were now officially husband and wife. This sentence made Gu-won's previous doubts disappear. In order to protect Gu-won, Do-hee coldly said that he couldn't protect her anymore because his ability had weakened to the point that he couldn't even protect himself. The colleagues heard that the CEO of Sunwol Fund would be coming. Soon after, Do-hee's group entered the company. They only saw the CEO wearing a formal suit, walking with strong steps. Who would have thought that the CEO was the man whose neck was twisted the other day? Suddenly, a colleague fired a shot, scaring Gu-won. He immediately covered for Do-hee. When everyone calmed down, they found that Secretary Shin was hugging the CEO of Sunwol Fund. In the morning meeting, the team leader reported that the slander case had been resolved. In addition, Gu-won was attacked, so the criticism had completely changed direction. The netizens who had cursed before also started to change their target of attack. Secretary Shin felt that if this was the case, no one would be able to oppose Do-hee as chairman anymore. After the meeting ended, the colleagues brought out Gu-won's favorite cake to congratulate him on his safe discharge from the hospital. Just as Gu-won was about to blow out the candles, the ribbon was accidentally burned by the fire. The ribbons that had not burned completely reminded Gu-won of the scene in his dream. The originally arrogant demon suddenly felt scared. The butler noticed Gu-won's abnormality and immediately pulled him to a corner. The butler was concerned about why he was so scared. However, Gu-won refused to admit it. He even ordered the butler to return to the company. Unexpectedly, the butler threatened to tell Do-hee everything so that she would ban him from following her. Finally, under the butler's friendly reminder, Gu-won had to tell the truth. He had a nightmare that spontaneously burned. The feeling of his fingertips being burned was really real. This made him feel the human fear. Meanwhile, Jin Ga-young went to Do-hee to warn her not to use the mark on her hand to take advantage of Gu-won. She also begged Do-hee to let Gu-won go. After all, it was because of Do-hee that Gu-won almost died. In the end, she advised Do-hee to solve her own problems. These words deeply touched Do-hee's heart. On the other side, the butler discovered that on the day the book was lost, the camera was missing 1 hour. The same was true on the day Gu-won was attacked. The other party had installed malware to interfere with the camera's recording. This meant that this person had already known Gu-won's true identity. As soon as Gu-won returned to the company, Jin Ga-young hugged him. Although Do-hee saw it, she did not say anything. Jin Ga-young also said that she knew about his magic power being ineffective. She also reminded Gu-won that everything was because of Do-hee that he had become weaker. Gu-won denied that it was not true, but Jin Ga-young insisted that this was the reason why he was becoming more and more human, and Do-hee always made him feel human because he liked her. That night, Do-hee couldn't sleep. She doubted whether she had done the right thing. The fight clearly had nothing to do with Gu-won, but he almost died because of her. But if she didn't do it, she would feel wronged for Ju Chun-soo. In her imagination, her foster mother appeared again. She said that dead people have nothing to be wronged about. She was just afraid that Do-hee would feel wronged. Do-hee must have felt wronged because she had lost her most precious relative, but she didn't even know who the murderer was. The foster mother told Do-hee that she now had a new family. She couldn't just give up her new family just because of the dead person. Moreover, she should make the best choice for herself and think about the person she truly loved. That would be good for her too. Do-hee asked what about her foster mother? What choice was good for Ju Chun-soo? She replied that Do-hee's best choice was her best choice. Do-hee thought about it and made a decision, so she immediately called Ju Seo-kun. The next day, in the board of directors vote, Ju Seo-kun still hadn't shown up. Do-hee announced that she was giving up her candidacy for the chairmanship, which was equivalent to giving that position to No Seok-min. At the end of the meeting, Do-hee told her relatives that she no longer cared about past. At the same time, she would also give up her legacy. She hoped that the fight could stop here. No Do-jung was very angry after hearing that. On the contrary, No Seok-min felt comforted that Do-hee had made a wise decision. After everyone left, Gu-won immediately held Do-hee. He didn't understand why she suddenly made such a decision. Do-hee lied that she was tired of the scheming fights. She didn't want to live in such insecurity and fear forever. She couldn't even go to work or take a walk alone. She wanted to return to her peaceful life like before. Gu-won knew that was just a lie. However, Do-hee shook his hand away and said the first sentence that went against her heart. Gu-won sat sadly on the ground. He locked himself in the company, thinking about many things that had happened in the past few days. Actually, last night Do-hee had clearly explained her idea to Ju Seo-kun. She thought that giving up everything would bring happy days. Ju Seo-kun didn't understand if doing so was to protect Gu-won. Do-hee said that she didn't want to lose the person she cherished anymore. Soon, Gu-won went to Ju Seo-kun and asked asked him what Do-hee's purpose was in doing so. Ju Seo-kun became extremely angry. He said bluntly that everything was for Gu-won. After hearing this, Gu-won immediately returned home wanting to talk to Do-hee, but he couldn't find her. He called and found her phone on the table. Gu-won rushed into the flower garden and loudly told Do-hee that if she gave up everything for him, then she should regain her courage to fight and make the best decision. That would be truly good for him. However, Do-hee made it clear that Ju Chun-soo, her parents had both passed away. The person she loved had all died. In the end, he would also die for her. Gu-won said it was okay. Then he suddenly stepped forward and kissed Do-hee. The scene was so romantic. Up until this moment, Gu-won had finally admitted that even though his feelings for Do-hee would make him become ordinary, she was still a fate that he could not resist. At this moment, the mark suddenly lit up. The falling water droplets quickly stopped in midair. Gu-won's ability had recovered. Do-hee happily crawled into his arms. That night, Gu-won and Do-hee did what newlyweds should do. The next morning, Do-hee woke up and shyly covered her face. Gu-won suggested going out for breakfast. This sentence shocked Do-hee a bit. She thought that demons did not eat breakfast. Gu-won did not know either, and he suspected that he had gradually become more human. The two of them went to the restaurant where they first met. Gu-won gradually got used to the noisy life. Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out from behind. The prosecutor was bragging to his blind date that there was once a chaebol daughter who fell in love with him at first sight. She kept clinging to him and demanding to register their marriage, but the righteous prosecutor did not want to become a subordinate of the chaebol, so he firmly rejected the proposal. Gu-won really could not sit still and listen. When the prosecutor saw Do-hee, he immediately left with the blind date as if he was running away. However, Gu-won could not let it go so easily. He was determined to use his ability to teach the prosecutor a lesson so that he would not dare to tarnish his wife's image in the future. However, Do-hee thought that the marriage was her idea after all. Do-hee reminded him that today was the company's anniversary, so it was okay not to go to work. After that, the two of them sat on a bench in the park, sighing that it was great not to have to work. Gu-won was curious about what people usually do when they are in love. Do-hee thought for a while and said that besides eating and walking, there was nothing special. Gu-won thought it was really ordinary, but then he asked if it was the same when he was with her. Suddenly, he saw a couple riding a tandem bike. Thinking of the word couple, he wanted to ride the bike with Do-hee. The two of them rode lap after lap, their faces filled with happy smiles. At this time, Gu-won saw a tandem duck boat and wanted to try it with Do-hee. Anyway, as long as it was related to couples, he wanted to ride it with Do-hee at least once. The important thing was that Do-hee didn't feel childish and was willing to try with him. The two of them were tired of playing and sat by the river watching the sunset. Gu-won said that he hadn't realized that even though people were ordinary, they also had a cute side. It was at that moment that he heard the girl behind him calling her boyfriend honey, so he expressed his wish that his wife would call him that too. Do-hee showed her disapproval with an annoyed expression. Gu-won reacted by saying that it was okay to call him husband. Do-hee said he was crazy. Gu-won asked her what was crazy about him. He was her husband. Seeing that Do-hee had no intention of opening her mouth, Gu-won immediately became angry. They had no idea that someone had been secretly taking pictures of them. That evening, Gu-won and Do-hee had just stepped out of the stairs when they heard assassin music coming from behind. As the sound got closer and closer, Do-hee unconsciously recalled what had happened that night, but it turned out to be the neighbor's phone ringing. Gu-won realized that this incident had had a great impact on Do-hee, so after entering the house, he took the initiative to play that song and invited her to dance with him. This dance was called Baroque. The most important thing when dancing was to trust your partner. Do-hee's mood soon seemed to improve a lot. Gu-won immediately told her to consider that song as their theme song from then on. Do-hee didn't say anything, just buried her head in Gu-won's chest. It turned out that the person who had secretly taken the photo was No Soo-jin. She had only watched Gu-won and Do-hee eat, drink, and have fun all day without getting any useful evidence. On top of that, she had had to suffer a lot. Gu-won tried to stop Do-hee from giving up the inheritance. He wanted to expose the mastermind behind it. However, Do-hee didn't agree because that would have meant starting everything from scratch. Gu-won naturally couldn't understand that the good choice for him had become the good choice for her. After hearing that, Gu-won asked if she wasn't curious about what the other party looked like. If she gave up now, she would never be able to escape the fear for the rest of her life. Do-hee thought carefully for a moment and decided to just go see the murderer's appearance. After saying that, she held out her wrist, but Gu-won's magic power once again lost its effect. This scene happened to be seen by Ju Seo-kun, who walked in. He then asked Do-hee privately if she regretted giving up her assets. Do-hee answered that she didn't regret it without thinking much. Meanwhile, Gu-won had already arrived at police station. The police based on his description to draw the murderer's appearance. That night, to celebrate her return to a peaceful life, Do-hee invited Secretary Shin to drink. The wife who had had never called him husband, called and asked, "Husband, where are you?" When Gu-won arrived, he was surprised to see that both Secretary Shin and Do-hee were drunk and didn't know anything. The two drunks really gave Gu-won a headache. He had only taken 2 steps when Do-hee suddenly started crying. She said that she felt guilty towards Secretary Shin. She felt guilty for always making Secretary Shin work overtime. Immediately after that, the two women burst into laughter for no apparent reason. Gu-won stood motionless beside them, not knowing what to do. He waited until the two were crazy enough and then immediately called his butler for help. Not long after, the butler took Secretary Shin out of the restaurant. Do-hee called Gu-won husband and asked him to carry her. Gu-won carried Do-hee towards home. Do-hee said that today she could finally be free, but she felt very guilty towards Ju Chun-soo. Every time she called out husband, she asked Gu-won to carry her for another lap. Gu-won indulgently replied that it was okay, but asked her again if she knew what round it was. Do-hee innocently replied that of course she didn't know, and then she begged him to go for another lap. Gu-won gently asked his wife if she wanted to go for another lap. Not knowing how much time had passed, Gu-won had brought Do-hee, who was still sleeping soundly. He couldn't help but sit by the bed and admire Do-hee for always giving her all in everything she did, even trying so hard to give up. On the other side, the police used technology to identify the assassin. Meanwhile, the mastermind had appeared. He was No Sok-min, Ju Chun-sook's son. In order to avoid being investigated by the police, No Sok-min killed the assassin. It turned out that the late chairman had discovered his son's actions, but No Sok-min did not repent. Instead, he had blamed his mother. He then changed the painkiller to an allergy medicine. In the will, the late chairman wrote to his eldest son that he would have to pay for what he had done. Now, the demon's guidebook is in No Sok-min's hands. He feels that his target is getting closer. The next day, when the police came to arrest the assassin, they found that his house had been burned down. There was a dagger stuck in his body. They immediately informed Gu-won and Do-hee. Gu-won looked at the dagger and remembered the situation of his stabbing. He seemed to have thought of something. When he left the police station, Ju Seok-hoon happened to run over. He asked this person to take Do-hee home, and he immediately returned to the office. He finally discovered the listening device under the table. It means that the mastermind was afraid that the assassin would reveal his identity, so he had killed the assassin to cover up the clues. On the other side, Ju Seok-hoon asked Do-hee how much he trusted Gu-won. He meant that he suspected Gu-won of killing the assassin. Do-hee affirmed that Gu-won was not that kind of person. Without letting Ju Seok-hoon say anything more, Do-hee affirmed that Gu-won had always protected her. Meanwhile, Gu-won discovered that all the contract clocks had stopped. He immediately went to the hospital to ask about child with leukemia. Before he could finish speaking, he saw that the child's symptoms had worsened. Only then did he realize that the demon's power had not lost its effect but had truly disappeared. Gu-won immediately went to the beggar woman to ask if she knew about his situation. The woman replied that he had now become completely human. After that, the two went to a luxurious bar. Everyone here greeted the beggar woman enthusiastically. Gu-won didn't quite understand. Since people often judge others by their appearance, how could these people treat a beggar like that? In fact, in the eyes of others, the beggar woman was a rich woman dressed in luxurious clothes. Gu-won thought it was inappropriate to talk in this place. He also couldn't have imagined that with a snap of her fingers, they would arrive in a desert area. This person knew that demons didn't like this, so she continued to snap her fingers repeatedly, and the scenery kept changing. Gu-won was very surprised and wanted to know who the beggar in front of him was. She said bluntly that Gu-won's demonic powers were given by her, and, to put it simply, she was a god. Gu-won didn't care that much. He just wanted to recover his own abilities. However, she admitted that she couldn't do it because she wasn't the one who had stolen them. It was obvious that the ability had transferred to an unsuitable body would disappear completely, and the demon that lost its ability would also disappear. The way to recover the ability was also very simple. As long as Do-hee died, Gu-won could recover the demon's powers. If she was still alive, on the night of the full moon, the mark would completely disappear and Gu-won would vanish. Gu-won didn't understand why she had treated him and Do-hee like that, but in fact she hadn't been able to control everything. Although she said that she was responsible for establishing the rules of the universe, in reality people hadn't lived by the rules but had chosen to live according to their own will. Because of that, countless changes had occurred in the universe. On the other side, two people who hadn't been able to find true love had found each other. Jin Ga-young told Ju Seok-hoon about Gu-won's true identity. She also said that stimulating people's ambitions to seduce them and then possess their souls were all tricks of the demon. Meanwhile, the god emphasized once again that as soon as the night of the full moon arrived, the gears of fate would stop turning. At that time, Gu-won would have to make a decision. Afterwards, Gu-won returned home and found that Do-hee had made a cake for him. It turned out that she had noticed the demon seemed to be very jealous of everyone celebrating the holiday, so she had practiced making a birthday cake. She said, while writing Gu-won's name, not knowing whether it was out of emotion or farewell. Gu-won hugged Do-hee from behind. However, Do-hee immediately realized that something was wrong. She asked him where he had gone in such a hurry. Gu-won didn't have the courage to tell the truth, so he found a reason to avoid it. Do-hee really thought that nothing had happened, so she turned around and fed him a piece of cake. She didn't expect Gu-won's enthusiastic recognition, but for some reason he didn't let her try it. Do-hee thought it would be a waste if they didn't eat it directly. Gu-won convinced her that they just needed to look with their eyes, though he insisted on trying it and said it was too salty. Gu-won immediately comforted her, saying that this cake was perfect for people who liked salty flavors. Do-hee playfully asked him to finish the cake. After saying that, she scooped a spoonful and brought it to his mouth, saying, "Here comes the salty cake." That night, the two of them sat on the rooftop. Gu-won asked Do-hee what she wanted to do the most if the earth was destroyed tomorrow. Do-hee leaned her head on Gu-won's shoulder and said that she wanted to stay home with him all day. First, she would sleep in, then she would joke around with him as if the days would last forever. Gu-won asked if there was anything else besides that. Do-hee said that she wanted to travel all over the world. He asked if there was anything else. How could a day be so long? Do-hee replied that besides doing things with him, there was nothing she wanted to do alone. Gu-won asked why not. Do-hee replied that of course she would spend the last day with him. The two leaned against each other until Do-hee fell asleep. Only then did Gu-won dare to speak out what was in his heart. He was most afraid of Do-hee disappearing from this world. After arranging everything for Do-hee, Gu-won sat by the bed. He whispered that he was going far away. Do-hee, who was sleeping, suddenly grabbed Gu-won's hand. She said in her dream that she would definitely find him. Gu-won sadly went outside to breathe some air. He looked up at the sky where the full moon was about to form. Then he went to the god again and said that he wanted to break the rules. Whether it was himself or Do-hee, they had to live. The god held the dice and laughed at Gu-won, because the rule was that if one side won, the other side would definitely lose. But Gu-won felt that everything had to be fought to know the result. He even suggested a bet that if he recovered his ability and Do-hee didn't die, then even the gods would lose. After saying that, he threw the dice on the table and laughed. The god took a closer look and saw that by coincidence, the numbers on the table were 2 number 1s. Afterwards, Gu-won returned to the office and asked the butler what time he and Do-hee fell into the Han River. The butler remembered that it was midnight at 00:30. After determining the time, Gu-won told the butler that if he did not return, the butler would definitely have to take position of director and sell all Gu-won's belongings. The money would be used to pay off the new car loan. Afterwards, Gu-won told Do-hee that tonight was the night of the full moon, the day of the transfer of the mark. It was also the day when it could return to his body. Do-hee happily wanted to go on a honeymoon with Gu-won. After the butler knew that Gu-won might disappear, he was extremely sad. Just then, Jin Ga-young saw this scene and questioned him. On the other side, Gu-won went to the police station. First, he clarified that he had not killed the assassin. He then deduced that the purpose of the dagger being stuck in his body was not to warn him, but to warn Do-hee. He was worried that her life would be in danger, so he wanted to ask the police for help to ensure her safety. Meanwhile, Jin Ga-young went to Do-hee and said that if Gu-won failed to restore the mark, he would die in her place. Do-hee said that she really didn't understand. Jin continued that if the mark didn't return to Gu-won tonight, he would die. But if Do-hee died, mark would return to Gu-won. Before she finished speaking, Jin Ga-young stuffed a bottle of poison into Do-hee's hand and begged Do-hee to save Gu-won. At this moment, Gu-won came to ask Jin Ga-young what she was doing, and Do-hee just wanted to confirm if what she said was true. Gu-won didn't answer and grabbed Do-hee's hand to leave. Jin Ga-young shouted again that the only thing Do-hee could do to him was death. Gu-won immediately spoke up to stop her. He reminded her not to cross the line. At this moment, Do-hee's mind was filled with chaos. She left the rooftop first to think carefully. Gu-won advised Jin Ga-young to stop having emotional illusions, because in his eyes she was nothing. After saying that, he followed Do-hee. Do-hee drove while recalling the words Gu-won said last night. Now, it sounded like a farewell, so she asked the butler to confirm whether Jin Ga-young's words were true or not. Do-hee was very sad when she found out the truth. Jin Ga-young's words kept ringing in her ears. She looked at the river and remembered the first time she had met Gu-won. She decided that no matter what, she had to jump into the river 100 times or 1,000 times. No matter what, she had to make the mark return to him. Before Do-hee could finish her sentence, Gu-won hugged her tightly in his arms. At this moment, both of them were thinking about each other. At the same time, two people who couldn't find true love met each other. Juseo-kun was worried that the mark would put Do-hee in danger. Jin Ga-young took advantage of his anxiety to deceive him. She said that everyone who met Gu-won didn't have a good ending. If that person didn't live in misery, they would also have to sell their soul to hell instead. Juseo-kun became even more worried when he heard this. Jin Ga-young revealed that today was the last chance to stop the two. Gu-won took Do-hee to a beach. They talked from morning to night. They wanted to try to restore the mark to its original position. Coincidentally, the car ran out of gas halfway way. They went to a nearby gas station. Do-hee wanted to buy a postcard to commemorate an important day like today. She went to pay first without knowing that someone was following her. That person was No Do-gil. It turned out that he had two phones, one of which was showing No Seok-min at the same time. He also knew about his father killing the assassin. No Seok-min used a hot iron to punish his son, but his mother put on headphones to pretend she didn't know anything. Looking at her, it was obvious that her husband often beat her. No Seok-min also reminded his son to find a way to prove himself useful, so No Do-gil transferred all his hatred to Do-hee. Just at that moment, Ju Seok-hoon called Do-hee and told her to keep her distance from Gu-won. He said bluntly that he already knew Gu-won's identity. He mistakenly thought that the demon wanted to harm people to save himself. No Do-jung suddenly started the car and rushed toward Do-hee. While No Seok-min had just been appointed as the chairman of Mirai Group, the car soon caught fire and caused a huge explosion. Gu-won ignored Jin Ga-young's attempt to stop him and rushed into the fire. The flames burned fiercely, just like the image he had seen in his dream. Suddenly, Gu-won saw an unburned postcard on the ground. It turned out that Do-hee had written on it that if faced with a difficult choice, she would definitely choose him, because losing the one she loved was more painful than losing herself. Gu-won regained his spirit. He found Do-hee gasping for breath in a corner. He had just taken 2 steps when the roof collapsed and hit her. At that moment, the gas station was almost completely burned down. Jin Ga-young and Ju Seok-hoon both thought that the two of them had surely died. Just then, Gu-won carried Do-hee out. Do-hee wasn't injured at all. It turned out that Gu-won had used all his strength in his panic. In the end, he tightly grabbed Do-hee's hand, and the magical mark returned to his wrist. This time, Gu-won had won over the gods. The first thing a demon did after recovering his entire physical condition was, of course, to enjoy life. By the way, he also freely expressed his contempt for small humans. In general, Gu-won's mood was very good. Do-hee saw him happy, and she also felt happy, but Gu-won was especially afraid that his wife would be hurt again. He picked up Do-hee and carefully placed her on the sofa. He said that although Do-hee looked fine on the outside, the after effects could last a long time after this incident. He was really scared. He almost lost his wife. Do-hee immediately corrected herself that they almost lost each other. After saying that, she stood up and prepared to go to work. However, Gu-won immediately followed behind. He took the items from high places for his wife and helped her coordinate her outfit. Overall, he looked like a good man. Do-hee was worried that she wouldn't make it to work on time. Unexpectedly, Gu-won disappeared with a snap of his fingers. After that, he started the office fashion show. He thought he looked perfect. Gu-won asked Do-hee to help him choose an outfit. Do-hee compared them and decided on the latest outfit. In just a moment, Gu-won had changed. Looking at Do-hee's expression, it could tell she liked it very much. In a flash, the two of them arrived at the company. Secretary Shin was very embarrassed when she saw them. She greeted them while turning her head away. On the other side, No Seok-min was not surprised at all to know that Do-hee and Gu-won were not dead. On the contrary, he felt more and more interested. Meanwhile, Gu-won started looking for a new contractor. Soon, he found a suitable person. The old man held a photo of him and his wife. He hoped that she would recognize him, even just once. Before he could finish, Gu-won entered the room and said that he could fulfill the old man's wish, but he had to sign a contract with Gu-won that he would go to hell in 10 years later. Suddenly, the old woman called out to find her husband. It turned out that she had senile dementia and could no longer recognize her husband, and her wish was to see her beloved husband one last time before she died. The old man turned around, hoping that Gu-won could help him. Gu-won said that she didn't have much time left, and he asked if he would be willing to go to hell in exchange for a few minutes for her to recognize him. The old man said that if she could recognize him, he had something to tell her. Gu-won didn't understand whether it was worth it or not, but he still used his magical power. With a snap of his fingers, the old woman saw her husband when he was young. She asked where he had been and why he had only just returned. The old man replied that he had always been by her side. The old woman thought that he didn't need her anymore. The old man was very sad and said that if she was not there, how would he live? But the old woman advised him that even if she was gone, he should live well because she would always be in heaven watching over her husband. The two promised to meet again in 100 years, and neither was allowed to forget the other. Hearing this, the demon who had lived for more than 200 years shed tears. Gu-won did not know whether he was moved or had become human. In the end, he decided not to sign the contract with the old man. He really could not understand why there was such a foolish person who would exchange 10 years for a few minutes. Not long after, Gu-won returned to the company in sadness. Do-hee saw this and suggested that he go catch the real murderer. She thought that someone had revealed the whereabouts of the two. That day, the only people who had known the route were Ju Seok-hoon, Jin Ga-young, the butler, and Secretary Shin. It just so happened that Secretary Shin was getting off work and was behaving strangely, so the couple decided to start investigating her. That night, they immediately discovered Secretary Shin sneaking walking to the riverbank. Then, a strange man appeared, holding a large box in his hand. Gu Wan determined that it contained bribes. He said bluntly that people could do anything immoral for money, so Do Hee and Gu Wan secretly approached to take pictures as evidence. Unexpectedly, Secretary Shin passionately kissed the man, causing Do Hee to panic and press the shutter. It turned out that the butler had brought a drunk Secretary Shin home that day. He had used his shirt to help her wipe her nosebleed. She had immediately considered him the perfect man. At that time, they were in the midst of a passionate love affair. After they eliminated their suspicions about Secretary Shin, they returned home. Gu Wan was not sure if he had been inspired or had felt the butler's deep love, but he unexpectedly took the initiative to propose to Do Hee. That night, Gu Wan dreamed about a woman he had met when he was human. He wondered who she was. The next day, No Suk Min came to see his younger sister and stirred up trouble. Gu Wan stood up to protect his wife. No Suk Min said that they had been married for so long, and he still didn't know how to address them. No Suk Min deliberately looked at the mark on Gu Wan's wrist. He noticed that the mark had returned. Do Hee looked at the photo he brought and recalled her childhood. She had once found Ju Chon Suk staring at the photo, but after realizing that someone had come, she deliberately hid it. Do Hee came to her senses and introduced her parents to Gu Wan. She often wondered if she hadn't urged them to celebrate their birthdays so much. Would her parents still be alive? Do Hee felt that when someone important to her encountered misfortune, they would always have the habit of blaming themselves. Actually, Do Hee understood that logic, but she still couldn't help but wonder what the outcome would be if she had followed suit. At this moment, she just wanted a hug. Gu Wan stood up without hesitation. Do Hee said that she needed him by her side, so in the future, he should not say that he wanted to go far away alone. Gu Wan said that her wish had been accepted, but not long after, Ju Seo-kun came to the company. Until now, he still couldn't believe that there really were demons in this world, but he didn't understand why the murderer targeted Do Hee. Wasn't it enough for Do Hee to give up on inheriting the property? Do Hee thought that the other party's goal wasn't money or the chairman position, but simply that he wanted her dead. She remembered that No Sok Min had just come and said that he would sponsor her company. Ju Seo-kun suggested that he would go and check on No Sok Min. After all, he looked very innocent and foolish. After that, Ju Seo-kun had dinner with No Sok Min's family, but he didn't see No Do-jung anywhere. When he mentioned this person, No Sok Min lied that his son was on a business trip. While Ju Seo-kun went to the bathroom, he opened the door to the reading room. Just as he was about to take a step forward, No Sok Min suddenly called him back. He then left No Sok Min's house and immediately informed Do Hee. He thought that No Sok Min seemed to be hiding something. He had just seen a blue-covered book in the study room. It was written that it was a book of the demon, which was the guidebook that Gu Wan had lost. However, all of Ju Seo-kun's actions were under No Sok Min's control. He then went to the private hospital room. It turned out that after Do Hee was injured, he had been imprisoned there. At this time, he still did not know that Gu Wan and Do Hee had been still alive. No Sok Min did not tell him. The father only revealed that his son had not proven his worth yet. He also yelled at his son to go and confess and take all the blame. From the murder of Ju Chon Suk to the attempted murder of Do Hee, only by doing so would No Sok Min not abandon him. He was still No Sok Min's son until death. After that, No Do-jung really went to the police station to confess, according to No Sok Min's words. At this time, Do Hee and Gu Wan used magic to find him. They didn't know what No Do-jung's purpose was in coming here. They just happened to suddenly appear in front of him. Of course, the camera couldn't see it. Actually, Do Hee just wanted to know who had harmed Ju Chon Suk. No Do-jung said that he was just following orders, but when asked who was behind it, he was scared and went crazy. They asked more but couldn't get any information. That night, when Gu Wan went to sleep, he had that strange dream again. This time, he saw the woman's face, and the moment he swung the knife towards her, suddenly, Gu Wan was awakened. He wondered if Do Hee from 200 years ago had been erased by him. At that time, he had been Seo Yi's son, a rich young master who had been respected and loved by the villagers. She had been a free-spirited sword dancer who had refused power and had lived a wandering life. Coincidentally, the two had met. From then on, the rich Seo Yi's son had used the excuse of studying to wait for the girl to dance at the meeting place. But his poor acting skills had been obvious to everyone. Everyone had seen what his purpose was. As the number of meetings had increased, the two gradually had become closer. The young master also had fallen deeply in love with Wolsum. That night, the two had not returned home. Seo Yi's son had been curious as to why she had come from the big city to this small city. Wolsum had said bluntly that she had refused to dance for the nobility, even though she had been a courtesan. If she had not been able to follow her heart, she would rather not have danced, because she had only come here to save her life. Seo Yi's son had guessed that there had been something that had made Wolsum rather die than dance. At this moment, a firefly had flown by. Seo Yi's son had carefully caught it and had placed it in front of the two of them. The atmosphere had become much closer. He had expressed his love for her her naturally. However, Wolsum had not known how to react when she had heard it. So Yi-sun had thought that the other party had not believed him. So, he immediately had said that they could get married. Wolsum had said that the most foolish human emotion was love. Moreover, according to her status, the most she could have done was enter the mansion as a concubine. So Yi-sun had suggested that they run away together, but Wolsum had said that if they had run away, they would never have been able to escape this world. As long as this world had not changed, their ending would not have changed. Until then, Wolsum had revealed the reason why she had not been able to dance. That day, she had seen her most precious friend leave this world. The reason was that her friend and the official's son had been in love, but the reality had been completely opposite to their dreams. Therefore, love cannot save people, but instead only makes people weak. After saying that, Wolsum had turned around to leave, but Seo Yi-sun had called her back. He had affirmed that love could save people. If they eventually had fallen into the abyss, he would have been willing to sink with her. In fact, Wolsum had long developed sincere feelings for the young master, but because of the difference in class and status, she still had not dared to take a step forward. Not long after, Yi-sun had found a book on Western knowledge, had talked about the idea that everyone had been born equal, with no distinction between high and low. After reading it, Wolsum also had felt more comfortable, but just in case, So Yi-sun had decided to take the exam. He had wanted to achieve success. That way, the two could have gotten married. However, this kind of love often ends in tragedy. Very quickly, the servant had reported the matter of the young master and Wolsum to his father. He had also been the lord of this small town. Not long after, So Yi-sun had prepared to go to the big city to take the exam. Before leaving, he had given the jewelry he had been wearing to Wolsum as a token. Wolsum had promised to always carry it with her while waiting for his return. However, as soon as Seo Yi-sun had left the city, the king of Joseon had issued an edict to abolish Western literature. Anyone who had studied it would have been punished without mercy. Anyone who had harbored a follower would have had their house burned down. The old master had feared that disaster would befall his only son, so he had decided to choose someone to be a scapegoat. That person had been Wolsum. After Wolsum had endured the cruel punishment, the official had forced her to reveal the other followers because he had not believed that this small city had had only one person. He also had shown her the token of the two people and had promised that as long as she had revealed the owner, she would have been spared. But Wolsum had insisted that it was hers. Time had passed, and Seo Yi-sun finally had returned successfully. That had also been the day of Wolsum's execution. Although Seo Yi-sun had recklessly rushed to the execution ground, he had still been one step too late. He had seen her in a dying state. The words that love could not save a person had echoed in his ears. Reason had been replaced by hatred in an instant. In the end, he had become a demon. Seo Yi-sun had drawn his sword and had slaughtered everyone present. Even the servant who had always been by his side had not escaped death. After confirming that there had been no survivors, he also had chosen to leave this world. He had said that if the place she had been in was heaven, then he would not go there. Gu-won woke up and looked at Do-hee, who was sleeping soundly. Only then did he remember that his beliefs had caused her to lose her life. Gu-won recalled his human memories and immediately went to see the god. He did not understand why she had turned him into a demon. The god did not hide anything, saying that whether it was heaven or hell, they both needed people. She saw that Gu-won was worried that fate would repeat itself. He was afraid that Do-hee would suffer again. The god said that it was a pity that fate would really repeat itself. It was Gu-won who had caused it, and that was the price for what he had done. Meanwhile, Kim-sera advised her son to be patient, that his father would definitely help him out. However, No Do-jung knew that his mother had ignored him when his father beat him. This made him angry. Unexpectedly, Kim-sera blamed her son for not listening to his father. She thought that he could not prove himself, so he was punished. No Do-kyung completely collapsed after hearing this. He angrily reminded his mother that she would be the next one to be beaten. Not long after, when leaving the prison, Kim-sera received a phone call. After hearing it, she immediately fainted. At the same time, Do-hee also received the news that No Do-jung had left this world in prison. No Do-jung's funeral took place very quickly. No Sok-min cried, looking very heartbroken. Kim-sera looked at her husband with meaningful eyes. It turned out that every time her son was beaten, she would scratch her arm so hard that now the skin there was completely necrotic. After the funeral, Do-hee walked up to No Sok-min. No Sok-min immediately apologized for his son killing Ju Chon-soo, but the conversation turned to how he hoped she would think about company and not make it public. Do-hee asked if he only cared about company. No Sok-min explained that it was the company that his mother and her father had built together. They had worked hard and gone through many hardships to build the company. No Sok-min thought that if the outside world found out that the grandson was mentally ill and killed his grandmother for his own gain, the company would definitely be greatly affected. No Sok-min made this request not only for the company, but also for the family. No Sok-min emphasized that they were relatives after all. Do-hee just sarcastically said that family always seemed to be a good excuse when there was more to it. After saying saying that, Do-hee left with Gu-won. The two arrived in front of Ju Chon-suk's grave. Do-hee thought that everything was over, but in the end, nothing had changed. She asked Gu-won if everything would really get better with time. Gu-won recalled his past as a human and said bluntly that no, they just temporarily forgot about it. That night, they went to see the Sunwall Foundation's performance. After that, Jin Ga-young prepared to go abroad and would not return. However, looking at her dance, Gu-won seemed to see Wolsom's shadow. That forgotten memory kept coming back, as if reminding him that there would not be a good ending. Thinking of this, Gu-won's eyes welled up. Do-hee immediately realized and worried about him. Gu-won confided that when he had been still human, he had killed many people. Among them were people who loved him and people he loved. Do-hee asked if there was a reason. Gu-won said that he had made the woman he loved the most a sacrifice. He blamed himself and felt that if he had not loved her, she might not have died. So now he was very afraid that fate would repeat itself again. Do-hee comforted him that if fate was destined to repeat itself, they should face it together. Do-hee now was just like him back then. Her eyes were filled with determination. Gu-won decided to create perfect ending this time. The day Do-hee's parents had a traffic accident was actually the day Gu-won terminated the contract. As soon as he completed the mission, he saw Ju Chon-suk beside him. The demon immediately smiled at her. Gu-won told Do-hee the details of his time as a human. After listening, Do-hee just hugged him. She both lamented the pitifulness of her previous life and felt that the ending was not perfect enough. And this was exactly what Gu-won was going to do next. First, he used his magic to turn off all the lights. Then he revealed the firefly in the palm of his hand. He must rewrite the ending of the two of them in this life to make it perfect. On her way to work the next day, Do-hee suddenly remembered that today was Christmas. Gu-won thought that since it was a holiday, she should listen to the corresponding songs. At that moment, Do-hee discovered a traffic accident nearby. Her thoughts suddenly went back to the day her parents died. She immediately became sad. Gu-won saw the expression very clearly. Then he went to see Ju So-kun. After all, only this person understood Do-hee. Gu-won wanted his wife to be happy, but Do-hee always felt guilty about the happy moments. According to Ju So-kun's understanding, Do-hee had once said that before her parents passed away, the years the whole family had spent together were the happiest. But misfortune suddenly struck. Do-hee was happy, so Ju So-kun speculated that maybe Do-hee was scared, so she became like that. After the incident, Do-hee kept moving, living with relatives. Relatives only cared about the inheritance and compensation. When the money ran out, little Do-hee became a burden to them. Then Ju Chon-suk adopted Do-hee. It was also thanks to her influence that Do-hee became more comfortable expressing herself. But now Ju Chon-suk has also passed away. Some time ago, Do-hee temporarily forgot her pain to find the murderer. After No-jung was punished, she probably remembered the past. That night, Do-hee slept in the study room. Gu-won saw that she had a dream. In the dream, Do-hee called out her parents and Ju Chon-suk's names helplessly, but she didn't receive any response. Gu-won entered Do-hee's dream and gave her a warm hug. At this time, Do-hee was crying and blaming herself. She blamed herself for her parents' death. Gu-won comforted her that she didn't do anything wrong. Do-hee asked why everyone left her, and Gu-won took Do-hee home. Her parents and Ju Chon-suk were decorating the Christmas tree. She had imagined this scene many times, so she didn't care if it was a dream or not, and experienced happiness with her family. On the other side, Kim Sera was tortured by No Sup-min to the point of going crazy. She wanted to escape from this house, so she opened the safe. She discovered the demon's guidebook inside, but before she could see, No Sup-min appeared behind her. Only then did he realize that his wife was not ignorant, but was just pretending not to be involved. That night, everyone was invited to No Sup-min's party. No Sup-min's real purpose was to buy the shares they were holding. Do-hee was the first to disagree. She and Gu-won stood up and left. Ju So-kun was next. He hoped that his brother would not make the wrong decision. Even though Soo-jin, who usually seemed obedient, refused. However, No Sup-min warned her that her brother's good intentions were enough for today. She would handle the rest herself. The next morning, the prosecutor's office searched Ju So-kun's company under the pretext of illegal compensation payments. He immediately went to No Sup-min to question him about what he wanted to do. It turns out that No Sup-min had fired some of the employees before. He also converted some of them to temporary contracts. In Ju So-kun's opinion, this was tantamount to disregarding life, but No Sup-min didn't think so. He believed that being a businessman meant talking about business. He immediately called the board of directors and decided to remove Ju So-kun from all his positions. He wanted to show who was the strong one. After knowing about this, Do-hee stormed into No Sup-min's office. She criticized him for being arbitrary and abusing his power. He went against Ju Chon-suk's business philosophy. However, No Sup-min said that his mother's era was over. Do-hee heard this and remembered that she and Gu-won had found a phone that contacted the assassin. The name on it was the author of a book. This person wanted to get everything he wanted and did not hesitate to destroy everything. In other words, No Sup-min was the one who had harmed Ju Chon-suk, but No Sup-min blamed Do-hee Do-hee. He also said that if it weren't for her, everyone wouldn't be in this situation. Do-hee asked how he could kill his biological mother. Unexpectedly, No-min said that that old woman was a demon and that he became like this because of her. No Seok-min told Do-hee that her parents were actually killed by her. Meanwhile, Gu-won went to Kim Sera to ask if she had seen a green book. Kim Sera lied and said she hadn't. Gu-won said that if she found what he needed, she should contact him. Who knew? Maybe it could be the thing that saved her from this place. After saying that, Gu-won left the hospital room. On the other side, No Seok-min took out a tape recorder. It turned out that he was also present at the scene on the day. Do-hee's parents and Ju Chun-suk had an argument. Moreover, he secretly recorded the conversation. At that time, Ju Chun-suk angrily chased Do-hee's parents' car. In the end, they crashed. After that, the company grew very quickly and became #1 in Korea. He also said that Do-hee's parents were the sacrifices for the company to grow like that. Do-hee didn't believe No Seok-min's words. However, No Seok-min became more and more agitated as he spoke. He rushed forward and grabbed her by the neck. At this time, Kim Sera caught up with Gu-won. She admitted that Ju Chun-suk and No Do-kyung were both had been killed by No Seok-min, and the one who had tried to kill Do-hee was him. When No Seok-min was about to kill Do-hee, he was immediately thrown away. Then, he was grabbed by the neck by Gu-won with one hand and lifted up. The guards outside heard the strange noise and rushed into the office, but at this time, all three of them had disappeared. Gu-won used his magic to bring No Seok-min and Do-hee to a place 100 meters high. However, No Seok-min knew that if the demon killed someone, he would turn to ashes, so he was not afraid at all. In fact, Gu-won was just deliberately stalling for time, because at this time, Kim Sera had already come to the police station to expose all of her husband's crimes. After hearing this, No Seok-min began to be afraid. He begged to sign a contract with the demon. No matter what it was, he could give up, as long as what he did was not made public. He also promised that he would never dare to get close to Do-hee in the future. Of course, Gu-won didn't agree. At this point, he still dared to talk about Gu-won's wife. Seeing that begging was useless, No Seok-min suddenly removed Gu-won's hand and fell straight down. It seemed that all hatred had ended there. Afterwards, the media exposed the truth that No Seok-min had murdered his biological mother. They also emphasized that his body was not found. Even Gu-won's teleportation ability could not find this person. It seemed that he could confirm that No Seok-min was dead. However, Do-hee kept remembering his words. She could not forget that Ju Chun-suk had harmed her parents. The next day, Kim Sera returned the demon's manual to Gu-won. Gu-won could not contain his doubts. He asked her if she knew about No Seok-min. Talking about Ju Chun-suk killing Do-hee's parents, Kim Sera said that even though she didn't know, if No Seok-min said it, it must be true. Meanwhile, while Do-hee was using the computer, the headline was No Seok-min's death case. That part sounded absurd, but she couldn't help but think about it, so Do-hee searched for posts related to the corporation's major events. Among them was one in which Ju Chun-suk knelt down to apologize. There was also a cane next to her. She immediately called Secretary Shin to ask about the situation. As far as Secretary Shin knew, Ju Chun-suk had started using the cane on the day of Do-hee's parents' funeral. As for the specific reason, no one knew. In the afternoon, Gu-won and Do-hee went to Ju Chun-suk's office. They tried to find some useful clues. Gu-won said that if only she could hear the words of the dead. At that moment, Do-hee caught a glimpse of Ju Chun-suk's prayer book. There was a way to hear what Ju Chun-suk had to say. The two quickly arrived at the church, and the priest was still waiting for Do-hee. It turned out that Ju Chun-suk had asked the priest for something. If she didn't have the courage to admit the truth before she died, and if Do-hee wanted to know the truth, then the priest should tell her. Do-hee's parents had discovered that Ju Chun-suk had falsified data, causing the death of the employee. However, Ju Chun-suk had to do that to attract a huge investment. That's why the two sides argued. Meanwhile, Do-hee's parents seemed to be in a hurry for something else. After saying a few straightforward words, Do-hee's parents left. Ju Chun-suk couldn't control her anger, so she followed. The two cars sped down the road. At 11:57, Do-hee's mother reminded that their time was running out. Do-hee's father stepped on the gas pedal hard, promising that he would definitely see his daughter. Before leaving, suddenly, the front right tire blew out, causing the car to lose control. Then, the car crashed hard into an obstacle on the side of the road. When Do-hee's father woke up, he found that Do-hee's mother was dead, and the demon was standing in front of him. Do-hee's father begged the demon to save his wife. The demon Gu-won said that he couldn't make a wish anymore because he had signed a contract 10 years ago. After 12 o'clock, the contract expired. That means Do-hee's father had exchanged something from the demon before, so he recklessly ran home to see his daughter. Gu-won finished his work and found Ju Chun-suk. He saw a deep desire in her eyes and asked her if she needed his help to realize her dream. After Do-hee knew the truth about her parents' death from the priest, she deliberately avoided Gu-won. She locked herself in the bathroom and tried to stop herself from crying out loud. Meanwhile, Gu-won thought his wife was too sad. He didn't think much of it and leaned against against the door. Then, Do-hee finally came out. Coincidentally, she met Gu-won, who was about to sign a contract, and the target of the contract this time was the priest she met during the day. Not only was the priest not afraid, he also advised Gu-won to stay away from Do-hee, because just seeing him would make her think of the demon that Ju Chon-suk had mentioned. Only then did Gu-won recall the situation that day. The god suddenly appeared behind Gu-won. She said that it was normal not to recognize someone he had met many years ago. Misfortunes do not repeat in the future, but start from the past. After Gu-won returned home, he found that Do-hee was not there. At this time, Do-hee had arrived in front of Ju Chon-suk's grave. She asked if her foster mother had honestly told her everything, would she not have loved Gu-won? These words happened to be heard by Gu-won. He did not say goodbye and turned away from the grave. Actually, Do-hee had not finished speaking. She wanted to find out what her father had changed. Maybe Gu-won had saved him. Do-hee went to see the butler to talk to him about Gu-won. Unfortunately, there was a problem with performance, so the butler let Do-hee go to the office first. After he finished his work, he would immediately go there. Do-hee went straight to the room full of clocks. She recalled the happy moments of that night. Suddenly, a woman barged into the office. She loudly demanded to see the demon. Gu-won immediately appeared before her. The woman's purpose in coming was to break the contract. She didn't want money or achievements anymore. After signing the contract, she regretted it every day. She begged Gu-won for mercy. She even promised to take back all her wishes, only hoping that Gu-won could spare her life. But Gu-won's eyes immediately turned red. He stared at the woman. The woman gradually had difficulty breathing. She painfully knelt on the ground. Gu-won coldly stared at her until she had no strength left to move. Not long after, the woman died from suffocation. Witnessing this, Do-hee was extremely frightened. A wall clock in the secret room suddenly disappeared. Only then did she understand that each clock represented a person who had signed the contract, which meant that her father's clock had also been hanging there. On the other side, the butler finished his work. On the way to the office, he met Gu-won. The butler asked him in surprise if he had seen Do-hee. Gu-won then realized that Do-hee had also been there just now, so he immediately chased after her. When Do-hee saw him, she unconsciously took a step back. Gu-won realized that his wife was afraid of him, so he did not move forward. That night, Gu-won took the initiative to find Do-hee and asked her to go for a walk. Although Do-hee was scared, she still agreed. After they walked for a while, Gu-won told her to save herself from hell. Then, he let go of her hand and disappeared on the spot. Her Gu-won just disappeared like that. It was said that when the cherry blossoms were about to bloom, winter had already entered the underground. Perhaps while Do-hee and Gu-won were spending happy moments together, they were destined to start parting ways. After Gu-won disappeared, Do-hee only stayed at home. A week later, she finally mustered up the courage to leave the house, partly because she needed to cooperate with police investigation, partly because she needed to organize the company's affairs. No Suk-min's body had not been found yet. His colleagues speculated that he might have been eaten by a fish. In fact, before Gu-won left, he had handed over the position of Sunwol Fund director to the butler. As for how long he would be gone, he said it would be until Do-hee had a happy ending without him. He also conveniently put the love token in the safe, but the butler was the best at finding things. He hesitated whether to tell Do-hee about what happened 200 years ago, but in the end, the butler gave up. After all, Gu-won hated people who talked too much. Do-hee returned to her normal job. Secretary Shin had gone through a broken marriage. She thought that Do-hee was just using her job to deceive herself. That afternoon, Ju Sel-kun brought Do-hee a lunchbox. He also asked if Gu-won was really leaving. Do-hee felt that it was simply that the contract had expired. After all, they had made it clear from the beginning that once the murderer was caught and once the mark returned to Gu-won's wrist, the relationship would end. In addition, the two had also talked about Ju Chon-suk. Do-hee didn't know if Ju Chon-suk had really adopted her out of guilt. Ju Chon-suk told Do-hee that the last time Do-hee had been in trouble, Ju Chon-suk had told him this. The more she loved Do-hee, the more she suffered. Only then did Do-hee understand Ju Chon-suk's heart for her. That night, at a homeless shelter, No Suk-min was sitting around a fire to warm himself. He was thinking about how to get revenge on Do-hee. Do-hee, meanwhile, had just returned home after a busy day. She looked at the empty room and lay straight on the sofa. She kept comforting herself that it was okay. It was all just a return to the starting point. After all, she was just a human. When Do-hee opened her eyes and woke up, she found herself lying on a bed. Moreover, there was warmth next to her. She rushed out of the room calling Gu-won's name, but received no response. However, Do-hee had a group of cheerful and noisy colleagues. Her life without Gu-won wasn't all that lonely. Do-hee took the opportunity to drink a lot to relieve her mood. When she got home, she accidentally fell. Her arm was hit so hard that it bled. As soon as she entered the house, she lay down on the sofa out of habit. At this moment, someone slowly walked in and sat next to her. This person was none other than Gu-won. Gu-won carefully placed Do-hee on the bed, and then he also lay down next to her. He helped her fix her messy hair and held her hand. The next morning, Do-hee woke up and found that the wound on on her knee had disappeared. Therefore, she told Secretary Shin that she felt that Gu-won was always by her side. However, Secretary Shin thought that it was an after effect of the breakup. That night, Secretary Shin was getting ready to leave work, but seeing Do-hee constantly working overtime, she couldn't help but remind her. When she had just divorced, she only knew about work. She forced herself to recover quickly. She thought that, if she pretended to be strong, her mood would improve, but she discovered that running away could not heal her. She needed to fully experience the pain. Even if she cried or made a scene, she needed to be faithful to her true feelings. Only then could time heal her. After Secretary Shin left the office, Do-hee couldn't help but have red eyes. Then, she entered Gu-won's office and found the demon's instruction manual. She found the photo of the two of them clipped inside the book. For a moment, those beautiful memories flashed through her mind. These memories made Do-hee so heartbroken that she had trouble breathing. At this moment, someone suddenly barged into the office. The butler saw Do-hee covering her face and crying, wondering why she came here in the middle of the night. Do-hee did not hide it, admitting that she missed Gu-won so much but did not know where he had gone. It could be said that she knew nothing about him. The butler really did not have the heart to hand over the keepsake to her, but he told her that when she missed Gu-won so much, it would have an effect. When she returned home, Do-hee immediately put on the necklace. That night, she seemed to have returned 200 years ago. In her dream, she saw herself suffering all kinds of humiliation. She planned to take one last dance before leaving this unfair world. Who would have thought that she would coincidentally meet the young master at that moment? However, the beautiful scene did not last long. Immediately after that, she was taken away to be executed. Although she had no regrets, she only wished to see the young master one last time. She wanted to tell him with her own mouth to forget her. That way, the young master wouldn't have to feel pain anymore. The memories between the two wouldn't become a pain either. Do-hee dreamed of this and suddenly woke up. Only then did she understand that she was the person Gu-won loved deeply. 200 years ago, she guessed that Gu-won was probably there, so she immediately prepared to drive there. But when she got into the driver's seat, she discovered No Seok-min's hunting rifle in the north passenger seat. No Seok-min rushed from behind and sedated her with a towel. When Do-hee woke up again, her hands and feet were tied. No Seok-min said something to himself when he saw her awake. In order to escape the demon's power, he had destroyed one side of his face with his own hands. Right now, the only thing he wanted was to destroy Do-hee and Gu-won. After saying that, he grabbed Do-hee's hair and forced her to call out the demon. Do-hee said that Gu-won wouldn't come because he had left her, but No Seok-min didn't believe it. He stabbed the knife into Do-hee's thigh and shouted loudly for Gu-won to appear. But he shouted for a while but nothing happened. No Seok-min set his sights on Do-hee again. He planned to deal with her first. Who would have thought that Gu-won would appear? Angrily staring at No Seok-min, the crazy No Seok-min became even more excited. He immediately wanted to kill Do-hee. Gu-won's anger reached its peak. The pillar on the upper floor began to crack and fall right on No Seok-min, but that wasn't the end. Gu-won controlled the rocks to continue to get heavier to crush No Seok-min to death. Seeing this, Do-hee immediately used a knife to cut the rope. After that, she ran to hug Gu-won tightly and begged him to stop. Otherwise, he would completely disappear. Thanks to that, Gu-won regained his senses and left the big stone. Gu-won said that he missed her very much. At this moment, No Seok-min came out with a hunting rifle and fired. Do-hee quickly rushed out to shield Gu-won. When No Seok-min was about to fire again, Gu-won managed to kill him. After that, he frantically called Do-hee's name, but she had already fainted. Gu-won decided to rely on the power given to him by the god to revive Do-hee. After that, he kissed her passionately. Not long after, Do-hee woke up. She realized that Gu-won might disappear. At this moment, the demon's back started to burn. Although Do-hee tried her best to call Gu-won not to leave her, she still couldn't stop the speed of the burning. In just a moment, Gu-won turned to ashes and disappeared before Do-hee's eyes. Only the wedding ring remained. When Gu-won turned to ashes, the happiest person was probably No Seok-min. He thought that he had successfully destroyed Gu-won and Do-hee with his own hands. Do-hee hid in her house in extreme pain. She felt that a world without Gu-won was too unbearable. Ju Seo-kun was worried that if things continued like this, Do-hee would seek death. However, Do-hee believed that her life was exchanged for Gu-won's life. Therefore, she had to stay in this hellish world. This was the punishment she deserved. Furthermore, Do-hee believed that Gu-won's departure was entirely her fault. Christmas quickly arrived. Do-hee wandered the streets alone. She put on makeup and arrived at the place where the story began. Do-hee prayed to the sky, hoping to sign a contract, and the content of the contract was that Gu-won could return. She did not know that her voice had been heard by the god, and this time, the god decided to be lenient. Soon, a strong wind began to blow and the sea became rough. The water droplets that were flying towards Do-hee suddenly stopped. She slowly opened her eyes, and the scene before her eyes was exactly like the first time she met Gu-won. Do-hee turned around in disbelief. The devilish Gu-won was captivating. He had really returned. returned. Do-hee didn't have time to think and immediately threw herself into his arms. That feeling of nothingness was extremely real. She wondered if this was a dream or an illusion caused by missing him too much. Gu-won told Do-hee that this was not a dream and neither of them died. Do-hee returned Gu-won's wedding ring. Gu-won said the familiar phrase, recharge. When Do-hee fell asleep, Gu-won hurriedly went to see the god to thank her. But the god told him that she did it because Do-hee had wanted to sign the contract. Hearing these words, Gu-won wanted to know what Do-hee had exchanged. The god said the price of the contract had already been paid. At this moment, Gu-won remembered the previous bet and the situation where he had sincerely begged the god. Perhaps it was at that moment that the god was moved. In the end, Do-hee couldn't help but ask Gu-won what her father had exchanged for the contract. It turned out that on a rainy night, when Do-hee's father had been taking his wife to give birth, and an accident had happened, when he had cried out in despair, the demon Gu-won had appeared. Do-hee's father had begged Gu-won to save his wife and child. He could agree to any conditions. So Do-hee's father had signed the contract to save his wife and unborn daughter. Gu-won didn't tell Do-hee because he was worried that she would think too much. However, Do-hee was very grateful to Gu-won. It seemed that her parents had known that there weren't many days left. So, for those 10 years, they had done everything they could to make her happy. After everything returned to normal, Do-hee visited No Seok-min. She revealed that both she and Gu-won were fine. The last thing he ruined was himself. No Seok-min was so agitated that he went crazy. That night, he saw a hallucination of Ju Chon-suk in front of him. Time quickly passed to 4 months later. At this time, Gu-won had already initiated a humanitarian service, which was to revoke the contract. Whenever he met a pitiful person, he would have compassion. However, once the butler found out that the person was a bad person, he would not be tolerant. Ju Seok-hoon had taken on the role of chairman of the group. In fact, Do-hee knew that the directors supported her because of Ju Chon-suk's will. But in terms of ability, Ju Seok-hoon was superior to her. In addition, No Seok-min had also received the final verdict. The Supreme Court sentenced him to life in prison, which meant he would have to spend the rest of his life there. Moreover, the prosecutor had also investigated that Ju Chon-suk had terminal pancreatic cancer, and this was the reason why she had urged Do-hee to get married quickly. The drama ends here. Thank you for your interest and attention. Goodbye and see you again.